Wikipedia. Wikipedia is the place for knowledge on the internet. The internet itself being a hub of knowing, Wikipedia takes all of that and condenses it into articles upon articles, a library so large that it rivals biblical ones, a library so big that it would make the Library of Alexandria look small. But for every 1,000 very informative articles, there's at least a few very strange ones, which takes us to this iceberg you see on screen here. Look at it, it's beautiful. This is the strange Wikipedia articles iceberg chart, and without further ado, I'm gonna shut the fuck up and start talking about the entries. So buckle your fuckles, because we're going to dive right in. Breast-shaped hill. Have you ever looked at something and gone, booba? Well, breast-shaped hill is that, but with hills. Sometimes you look at hills and you think, wow, that looks like a boob. Look at this one. It's got a nipple and all. Goddamn. That really is a boob-shaped hill. That one? Yep. Yep. A little bit wide, but yep. I ain't see that one, but I don't see that one either. Yep. So, yeah. There is, of course, a name for them, which is Mamuseum, more like mommy milkers. And that gave origin to the name of the city of Manchester, because that name is thought to have derived from the Celtic language meaning breast-shaped hill. Isn't that pretty fucking hilarious? There are, all throughout the world, even in Antarctica, there are boob-shaped hills, but, there's nothing too remarkable about it besides looking at something and going, it's spontaneous human combustion. Spontaneous human combustion is the concept of the combustion of a living or recently deceased human body without an apparent external source of ignition. That is the fancy way of saying it's in the fucking name. It's spontaneous, it's human, and holy fucking shit, it's on fire. Spontaneous human combustion, of course, refers to the death from a fire originating without an apparent external source of ignition, hence spontaneous, but the belief around it is that the fire starts within the body of the victim. This idea was proposed in 1764, but the top characteristics of these recorded cases of spontaneous human combustion is that the victims are chronic alcoholics, usually elderly women. The body is not burned spontaneously, but some lighted substances come into contact with it. The hands and feet usually fall off, and fire has caused very little damage to combustible things in contact with the body. The combustion of the body, of course, often leaves a greasy residue with fetid ashes, very offensive in odor. Since this shit has been happening since the Victorian era, it's surprisingly not well researched. You'd think knowing about it for a few centuries would tell us to, look into that, but science doesn't really care about the things on the realm of its boundaries, on the very edge of what it is, and thus it doesn't look. But extensive 2-year projects involving 30 historical cases of alleged spontaneous human combustion was conducted in 1984 by science investigator Joe Nickel and forensic analyst John F. Fisher. The 2-part report was published in the Journal of International Association of Arson Investigators as well as part of a book. Nickel has written frequently on the subject. Their investigation, of course, which looked at cases in the 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries, showed that the burned bodies were close to plausible sources for the ignition. Candles, lamps, fireplaces, cigarettes, so on. Such sources were often omitted from published accounts of these incidents, presumably to deepen the aura of mystery, to add a bit of a showmanship to it, to really glizzy you up, and create this apparently spontaneous death. The investigators also found that there was no correlation between spontaneous human combustion deaths and the victim's intoxication or any other forms of incapacitation for that matter, which could conceivably have caused them to be careless and unable to respond properly to an accident. Where the destruction of the body was not particularly extensive, a primary source of combustible fuel could plausibly have been the victim's clothing or a covering such as a blanket or a comforter. However, where the destruction was extensive, additional fuel sources were involved, such as chair stuffing, floor coverings, the flooring itself. Investigators described how such materials helped retain melted fat, which caused more of the body to be burned and destroyed, yielding still more liquid fat, in a cyclic process known as the Wick effect, not John Wick, or the candle effect. According to Nickel and Fisher's investigation, nearby objects often remained undamaged because fire tends to burn upwards, but burns laterally with some difficulty. The fires in question are relatively small, achieving considerable destruction by the Wick effect, and relatively nearby objects may not be close enough to catch fire themselves, much as one can closely approach a modest campfire without, lighting themselves on fucking fire. As with other mysteries, Nickel and Fisher cautioned against single simplistic explanation for the unusual burning deaths, but rather urged investigating on an individual basis, which is entirely logical. A follow-up 2002 study by Angie M. Christensen of the University of Tennessee cremated both healthy and osteoporotic samples of human bone to be compared to resulting color changes and fragmentation. The study later found that osteoporotic bone samples consistently displayed more discoloration and a far greater degree of fragmentation than healthy ones. The same study found that when human tissue is burned, the resulting flame produces a small amount of heat, indicating that the fire is unlikely to spread from burning flesh. So the suggested explanations are as followed. The scientific consensus about it is that the incidents which might appear as spontaneous combustion did in fact have an external source of ignition, and that the physical possibility of spontaneous human combustion without an external ignition source is extremely implausible, but not yet impossible because of the law of infinite probability, which states that anything can and will happen, but that's for another time. Some pseudoscientific hypotheses have been presented which attempt to explain how spontaneous human combustion might occur without an external flame source. Benjamin Radford, science writer and deputy editor of the science magazine Skeptical Inquirer, casts doubt on the possibility of spontaneous human combustion. If it's a real phenomenon and not the result of an elderly or infirm person being too close to a flame source, why doesn't it happen more often? There are 5 billion people in the world at the time that he said this, 1987. Wow, boomer. And yet we don't see reports of people bursting into flame while walking down the street, attending football games, or sipping a coffee at a local Starbucks. Paranormal researcher Brian Dunning, on the contrary, states that spontaneous human combustion stories are simply rare cases when a natural death in isolation followed by a slow combustion from some nearby source of ignition. And that's a pretty logical take. He further suggested that reports of people suddenly aflame should be called unsolved deaths by fire, stating an unknown cause did not necessarily imply that the fire lacked an external ignition source. There are, of course, natural explanations that all revolve around the Wick effect, which is the fact that fat is very flammable. So, if you're overweight, yeah, you are hot, or at least you will be, if you get too close to a fire. Alternative theories, however, are pretty wacky. Larry E. Arnold, in his 1995 book Ablaze! To really show you that this is something that's fun and great for the family, proposed a pseudoscientific new subatomic particle, which he called the pyrotron? The fuck is this, an 80s sci-fi movie? Arnold also wrote that the flammability of a human body could be increased by certain circumstances, like increased alcohol in the blood, and that extreme stress could be the trigger that starts many combustions. This, of course, has no evidence backing it. The process may use no external oxygen to spread throughout the body, according to him, since it may not be an oxidation reduction. However, no reaction mechanism has been posed. There has been no science behind it, and Joe Nickel himself criticized Arnold's hypothesis based on selective evidence and argument from ignorance, which is a smart way of saying, damn son, you stupid as fuck. In the 1976 book, Fire from Heaven, UK writer Michael Harrison suggests that spontaneous human combustion is connected to poltergeist activity because he argues the force which activates the poltergeist originates in and is supplied by a human being. Within the concluding summary, Harrison writes, spontaneous human combustion, fatal or non-fatal, belongs to the extensive range of poltergeist phenomena. John Abrahamson suggested that ball lightning, a very strange phenomena in and of itself, could account for spontaneous human combustion, but the circumstances of it are extremely rare because ball lightning itself is almost unheard of. The charring of human limbs has been seen in a number of ball lightning cases, or at least a very few that there is, and it's very suggestive that this mechanism could be possible and have occurred where people have had limbs combusted, but ball lightning is an extremely rare and unresearched phenomena. There are, of course, several cultural references to it. Authors love this kind of shit. I know, if I ever have an excuse to just light a fucking character on fire in a book, you bet your ass I will. But that is about it for spontaneous human combustion. Who knows, maybe it's Jesus Christ himself. He sees you masturbating, boom, you're on fire. Up next on the serving platter, we have ElsaGate. ElsaGate is a weird Wikipedia article because ElsaGate itself is a weird fucking thing. ElsaGate was a series of videos on YouTube that was produced by various content creators, and that is a strong usage of the word for these people, but it was popular children's characters in situations that were inappropriate for children, but just PG enough for YouTube to not catch on. Most videos are notable for presenting content including graphic violence, sexual situation, fetishes, obscene language, drugs, alcohol, and toilet humor, as well as dangerous or upsetting situations. These videos had crossovers, were used without legal permission, but nobody really gives a shit about copyright here on the internet, which is good because it's kind of a bullshit system. But ElsaGate existed from 2007 to 2017. The channels were, well, the first channel that was seen was founded May 25th, 2007. In June 2016, The Guardian published an article about the channel Webs and Tiaras, which had been created in March the same year. The channel showed people dressed as characters like Spider-Man, Elsa, and the Joker engaging in bizarre or nonsensical actions. The videos themselves had background music but no dialogue. Having no script, there was no language barrier on which the videos would normally have, hindering worldwide distribution. The article also reported that nearly identical channels named Toy Monster, The Superhero's Life, and The Kids Club would all appear on YouTube around the same time. In January 2017, one channel under control of YouTube partner in Vietnam, Spider-Man Frozen Marvel Superhero Real Life, blocked their Vietnamese subscribers after complaints from parents regarding the content of their videos. The channel's owner was later fined by Vietnamese authorities, but what is that going to do against rich people? The high number of views have led some to voice concerns that such channels are gaming the system by using bots or click farms to inflate viewing figures to higher proportions. However, there's no evidence for this, and kids are astonishingly fucking stupid, so it makes sense if they did some shit like watch this. In February 2017, The Verge commented that adults dressing up in costumes and acting out weird, wordless skits had become a booming industry on the world's largest video platform, and that while many were puerile but benign, others featured more questionable content such as scatological humor, oh no, poop jokes, something every kid show ever, violent or sexual situations, which I'm not going to mock those. I have younger siblings. I'm not going to be like, here kids, watch a fucking murder porno, let's go, Spider-Man's in it. The article noted that most of the high number of views had led some to voice concerns that gamers and other actual content creators would be just thrown under. The videos were made with a very limited budget and a few Halloween costumes, which made them easy to produce and contributed to their multiplication. It also attributed to their success the use of Freudian concerns, which young children may find fascinating, amusing, or frightening, such as peeing, pooping, kissing, and pregnancy. God, why did we have to mention Freud? Every time someone says that jackass's name, he becomes one little bit closer to resurrecting and asking everyone, how's the MILF kink going? And the terrifying notion of going to the doctor and getting a shot was also manipulated in this. Now, in November of 17 is when several newspapers really began to crack down on it, especially Toy Freaks, who had been created 2 years earlier by a single father named Greg Chisholm. Toy Freaks had a total of 8.54 million subscribers and were among the top 100 most viewed before YouTube fucking jaboinked that shit. The channel often featured Chisholm's daughters and in most cases showed them scared or crying, which is pretty scummy. These videos could be found in local video platforms in China where YouTube is blocked, including Tencent, Youku, and iQIYI. Tencent has sped up a specific team to monitor its video platform and permanently shut down 121 accounts and blocked more than 4,000 search keywords by January of 2018. The Ministry of Public Security of China, definitely not dystopian name, suggested that netizens should report these videos to the authorities once found. Several celebrities went on the record, the New York Times got in on all of it, satirical sound collage group that I've never heard of, Negative Land, but is for some reason relevant, got in on it. Everyone bullied the shit out of it until YouTube announced that it had new guidelines on content and monetization, making it harder for me to get those dimes from the website. Please, just give me money. Just kidding. In an ongoing series of efforts to demonetize controversial and offensive videos, it announced creators would no longer be able to monetize videos that made inappropriate use of family-friendly characters. So, no more Family Guy porn, guys. In November of the same year, it announced it would implement a new policy that age restricts this content to the YouTube main app when flagged, which is stupid because who else is going to watch that besides kids? But I guess it makes sense because YouTube wanted to stop kids from watching it. The controversy extended to channels that featured not necessarily children's characters, but actual children, who sometimes performed inappropriate or dangerous activities for that sweet, sweet internet clout. Remember, if you have kids, you can milk that shit for likes on Instagram and views on YouTube. As part of a broader action, YouTube terminated the channel Toy Freaks and made them a example. By destroying that channel, other channels like it were suddenly scared off. Chisholm was then subsequently investigated by Child Protection Services in Illinois and Missouri for alleged child abuse. Surprising. In December 2017, authorities announced that Chisholm would not face criminal charges, but before its removal, his channel had 8.5 million subscribers. It was also revealed in the media that many videos featuring minors, frequently uploaded by the children themselves and showing innocent content, had attracted comments from pedophiles and other groups. Some of these videos were monetized. As a result of the controversy, several major advertisers froze spending on YouTube, forcing YouTube to ban children from their site, citing legal obligations, which makes sense. The amount of people under 12 has fucking ruined this website. If you're under 12, well, I appreciate you watching my channel, but please, for the love of God, just hold off until you're over 12. It is fine once you're 12, but until then, you're maybe a little bit too young to hear me saying fuck shit and talking about cum, and you're probably too young for YouTube as a whole. That's just a good rule of thumb. Of course, YouTube is shit at enforcing this rule because it loses them a ton of profit, so you know what they're not going to do? They're not going to enforce that rule. Now, of course, there was effects on children. Several parents, teenagers, or peers posting on the r/ElsaGate subreddit expressed fears that the videos were traumatizing to children and may desensitize normal inappropriate content. That's just what the internet does to everyone, but alright, buddy. The New York Times quoted pediatrics professor Michael Rick, who stated that these videos were potentially harmful to children who could find them even more upsetting as characters they thought they knew and trusted were shown behaving in an improper or violent manner. Again, that's what the internet does to you, buddy. Chupacabra. The Chupacabra is a supposed cryptid that lives somewhere in the Americas and the islands around it. First reported as sighted in 1995. The name comes from the animal's reported vampirism. The Chupacabra is said to attack and drink the blood of livestock, which makes its name goat sucker in Spanish quite literal, because it sucked goats. And not the cool kind of suck where you bust a nut, but the bad kind of suck where you bust through the gates of heaven. In 1975, a series of livestock killings in the small town of Mocha were attributed to El Vampiro de Mocha. I you have to be extremely gringo and or gringa, or whatever the gender-neutral term of white slur is in Spanish, but everyone knows what that means. The Vampire of Mocha. Initially, it was suspected that the killings were committed by a satanic cult because who else would do that shit? But later, more killings were reported around the island, and many farms reported loss of animal life. Each of the animals was reported to have had its body bled dry through a series of small circular incisions. The first reported attack, eventually attributed to the actual chupacabra, would occur in March of 1995 when 8 sheep were discovered dead in Puerto Rico, each with 3 puncture wounds in the chest area and reportedly completely drained of blood. Same way I want a Scottish e-girl to drain me. A few months later, in August, an eyewitness named Madeline Tolentino reported seeing the creature in the Puerto Rican town of Canovanas, where as many as 150 farm animals and pets were reportedly killed. Puerto Rican comedian and entrepreneur Silverio Perez is credited with coining the term chupacabras soon after the first incidents were reported by the press. Shortly after the first reported incident in Puerto Rico, other animals' deaths were reported in other countries, such as Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Dominican Republic, El Salvador, Honduras, Mexico, Nicaragua, Panama, Peru, and the United States. In October and December of 2018, there came many reports of suspected chupacabras in Manipur, India. Many domesticated animals and poultry were killed in a suspicious manner, similar to other reported chupacabra attacks, and several people reported that they had seen chupacabras. However, as forensic experts opined that street dogs were responsible for the mass killing of domestic animals and poultry after studying the remnants of a corpse, which makes sense but also doesn't. In October 2019, a video recorded by Mundo OVNI showed the result of a supposed attack on chickens in the Supraquilo sector of Lares, Puerto Rico. My pronunciation of all of that was so white. I'm so sorry. The reputed origins come from a 5-year investigation by Benjamin Radford, documented in his 2011 book Tracking the Chupacabra. Concluded that the description given by the original eyewitnesses in Puerto Rico, Madeline Tolentino, was based on the creature in Seal in the 1995 science fiction horror film Species. The alien creature Seal is nearly identical to Tolentino's Chupacabra eyewitness account, and she had seen the movie before her report. It was a creature that looked like the Chupacabra in Hispanic lore and Latino lore, being reported as basically a lizard dude that, gave animals the Yuck Gluck 9000 to get all of their blood. Now, of course, the fact that the Chupacabra description cannot be trusted seriously undermines the credibility of the Chupacabra as a real animal. Now, in the southwestern United States, the Chupacabra is often reported as something that is more dog-like than reptilian-like, which makes sense, I guess, more than lizard dude. In addition to the reports of blood sucking by the Chupacabra, they were never confirmed by necropsy. The only way to conclude that the animal was drained is blood. An analysis by a veterinarian of 300 reported victims of the Chupacabra found that they had not been bled dry. Radford divided the Chupacabra reports into 2 categories: the reports from Puerto Rico and Latin America, where animals were attacked and it's supposed their blood was extracted, and the reports in the United States of mammals, mostly dogs and coyotes with mange, that people call Chupacabra due to their unusual appearance. In late October 2010, University of Michigan biologist Barry O'Connor concluded that all the Chupacabra reports in the United States were simply coyotes infected with the parasite Sarcopedes scabiei, whose symptoms would explain most of the features of the Chupacabra. They would be left with little fur, thickened skin, and a rank odor. O'Connor theorized that the attacks on goats occurred because of these animals are greatly weakened, so they're going to have a hard time hunting. So they may be forced into attacking livestock because it's easier than running down a rabbit or a deer. Although several witnesses came to the conclusion that the attacks could not be the work of dogs or coyotes because they had not eaten the victim, this conclusion is incorrect. Both dogs and coyotes can kill and not consume prey either because they are inexperienced or due to injury or difficulty killing the prey. The prey can survive the attack and die afterwards from internal bleeding or circulatory shock. The presence of 2 holes in the neck corresponding with canine teeth are expected, since this is the only way that most land carnivores have to catch their prey. Now, on top of this, there are reports of stray Mexican hairless dogs being mistaken for chupacabras, but I'm going to take a moment and poke a hole in the logic that I saw here, which is if it's a coyote forced into starvation, desperate enough to attack a livestock animal, it would absolutely eat it unless it itself was critically harmed. But I digress. The likelihood that the chupacabra is a real thing, not very high. Just like my expectations. Now, the likelihood that there is something out there fucking around with animals that we just don't recognize yet, 110%. It's definitely out there. It's just what it is. Definitely ain't lizard homeboy that you see up here. No sir, ma'am, or anything in between. Definitely not. D's nuts. Boom, caught your ass slacking. No, D's nuts satirist. Do you remember 2016? I do, but I try not to actively because it was just a bad time. The fucking gorilla got shot, and then there was Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton, and it just kept getting worse, and it has continued to get worse. But during that funny haha time when everything was getting really bad, but not quite terrible yet, people were writing in D's nuts on ballots. And D's nuts eventually became an actual satirical presidential candidate, portrayed by Brady C. Olson, aged 22 years old. D's nuts ran in the 2016 United States presidential election, and his form to run for office was filed with the Federal Election Commission as late as July 2015. In polls conducted by Public Policy Polling in Iowa, Minnesota, North Carolina in mid-August 2015, he polled at 8, and 9% respectively, garnering the attention of the media. Yes, that's right, the 2016 election was so fucking bad that people literally would have voted for D's nuts. D's nuts, as a matter of fact, slightly beat out Jill Stein and Harambe. Yes, that's right, the dead fucking gorilla was also running for president. Mr. Nuts' bid for presidency drew the attention of a number of questionable candidates who had filed to run for office. Jim Williams, an analyst at Public Policy Polling, the organization that had conducted the poll in North Carolina, noted to The Guardian that due to a fringe of the population with penchant towards anti-establishment candidates, you could call the third-party candidate anything and they would get their 7 or 8%, because that's right, it wasn't fed-up Americans voting for D's nuts, a millennial and Gen Z joke. Nope, it was fringe Americans. Your Uncle Michael, who has 753 machine guns built in his shed in the woods and is actively prepared for war with Russia, that's the guy who cast his vote for D's nuts, clearly. I can't believe you didn't know this earlier. D's Nuts' platform, as a matter of fact, is about just complete anarchy, but I digress. In August 2016, the Federal Election Commission announced its intent to punish future satirical candidates for president for false filings with the federal agency. And to that I say, suck my fucking dick, I will be running as D's Nuts in 2024. Now, D's Nuts was endorsed by the man behind the original D's Nuts skit, as well as hip-hop artists Warren G and Ice-T also endorsing him. D's Nuts, however, ultimately conceded a true tragedy because we could have seen America return to monkey. But D's Nuts, in his absence, endorsed Bernie Sanders and John Kasich for the respective 2016 Democrat and Republican presidential nominations. Erotic asphyxiation. Erotic asphyxiation, variously called other things that all mean you are a fucking freaky motherfucker, is the attentional restriction of oxygen to the brain for the purposes of sexual arousal. The term autoerotic asphyxiation is used when the act is done by a person to themselves. Colloquially, a person engaging in the activity is sometimes called a gasper. I know people who say choke me definitely have me gasping. Erotic asphyxiation can lead to accidental death. No fucking shit. Depriving yourself of oxygen is kind of bad. But the physiology of it is concerning hallucinogenic states brought about by chronic hypoxia, which is the lack of air bouncing around in your bloodstream. Dr. E.L. Lloyd, wow, that's a weird-ass name, notes that they may be similar to the hallucinations experienced by climbers at altitude. He further notes that no such state occurs in hypoxia brought about by southern aircraft decompression at altitude. These findings suggest to him that they do not arrive purely from a lack of oxygen. Upon examining the studies on hypoxia, he found that abnormalities in the cerebral neurochemistry involving one or more of the interconnected neurotransmitters, dopamine, serotonin, and beta-endorphin, had been reported in all conditions associated with hallucinations. Historically, the practice of autoerotic asphyxiation has been documented since the early 17th century, but considering the fact that there is statues of people having their fucking ass ate from like 3000 BC, we've been choking each other since we were monkeys in Africa. Just accept it. It was first used as a treatment for erectile dysfunction. Can't get it up? Strangle yourself. The idea for this most likely came from subjects who were executed by hanging, because when somebody was hung, you'd be finding out if they were hung too, as blood pooled downward after their neck snapped. Observers at public hangings noted that male victims developed an erection after this, because again, blood go down. Various methods are used to achieve the level of oxygen depletion needed, such as a hanging, suffocation with plastic bag over the head, self-strangulation, such as with a ligature, gas, or volatile solvents, chest compression, or some combination thereof. Sometimes complicated devices are used to produce the desired effects because you have to have an engineering degree if you can't just find another human hand. The practice can be dangerous, no shit, even if performed with care, no shit. It has resulted in a significant number of accidental deaths, no shit. UVA 1995 writes, estimates of the mortality rate of autoerotic asphyxia range from 250 to 1,000 deaths per year in the United States. Cases have also been reported in Scandinavia because they have nothing else to do in the winter, and Germany because Germans are just kind of freaky-deaky. Swedish police reported in 1994 that the number of autoerotic asphyxiation fatalities in the Stockholm area, 1.7 million inhabitants, were at least 5 annually, but the number of unrecorded cases was assumed to be high. Think about it. If you walked in on your homeboy, or your brother, or your homegirl, or your sister, or your home sibling, or your friend, and they've got fucking dick in hand, vibrator in ass cheek, blue in the face, you're gonna call the cops and be like, yo, my boy just choked to death, jacking his cock off, the fuck do I do? Now you're probably gonna be like, oh shit, I gotta clean this up, make it look like he hung himself instead. Autoerotic asphyxiation is often mistaken for suicide because of that, which is a major cause of death in teenagers because we're all unstable, hormonal, horny fucks. Deaths often occur when the loss of consciousness caused by partial asphyxia leads to a loss of control over the means of strangulation, resulting in continued asphyxia and death, while often asphyxophilia, wow, I can't say that word, is incorporated into sex with a partner. Others enjoy this behavior by themselves, making it potentially more difficult to get out of dangerous situations. In some fatality cases, the body of the asphyxophiliac individual is discovered naked or with genitalia in hand, with pornographic material or sex toys present, the scenario I just described, with evidence of having orgasmed prior to death. Look at it this way. You died, but for the greatest fucking nut of your life. Bodies found at the scene of an accidental death often show evidence of other paraphilic activities, such as fetishistic cross-dressing and masochism. In cases involving teenagers at home, families may disturb the scene by sanitizing it. We can't have little Timmy's cause of death listed as busting a nut. This can have the consequence of making the death appear to be a deliberate suicide rather than an accident. There are several famous cases, but what do I care? This definitely was a weird Wikipedia Iceberg article to read, but there is actually one case that I do care about just because I just glanced over it and that hit me like a fucking truck. Seda Abe killed her lover, Kichizo Ishida, through strangulation while he was sleeping after having experimented with erotic asphyxiation in 1936. She then proceeded to cut off his cock and balls and then carry them around with her in her kimono for 3 days. This caused a sensation in 1930s Japan and has remained one of the most famous Japanese murder cases of all time. Can't wait to see this on the True Crime Iceberg. Here's a photo of right after that happened. Why are they all smiling? Why are they all smiling?
What the fuck? What the fuck is this? That is not funny. That is not, there's nothing.
Anyway, on to the next one. Shooing of George W. Bush. George W. Bush, one of the many shitbags to have been in the White House, had a shoe thrown at him. This, I think, is fantastic to know, but there are several security incidents. We don't care about the White House shooting. I don't give a shit about the grenade attack. Both failed to kill him. Both aren't funny because they failed to kill him, but the Baghdad shooting is pretty fucking fantastic. On December 14th, 2008, Iraqi journalist Muntadar al-Zaidi, that was white pronunciation, I am so sorry for being born in Mayo land, threw both of his shoes at the United States President George W. Bush during an Iraqi press conference. Bush quickly ducked. He managed to weave his way out of it, avoiding being hit by either of the shoes. The second shoe hit the U.S. flag, and al-Zaidi was subsequently grabbed, kicked, and hurried out of the room by guards. He received a 3-year prison sentence, but he should have gotten it for free and hit Bush in the head with the fucking shoe because that's what Bush deserved. Let me see if I can find a video of the incident itself real quick. Here's the video. I managed to find it, and wow, look at that. His ducking skill is on point. Now, I've got to say, a commenter put it very eloquently. Throw one shoe, shame on you. Throw two shoes, now you have no more shoes to throw, idiot. But yeah, Bush definitely deserved this. Should have clocked him right in the head. Did you see his smug look as he ducked the first one? Would have been perfect if the second one just wham, right in the face. That would have made my day. That would have made my decade even. That would have made the last 18 years of suffering worth it. But alas, I can't have what I want. So on to the next one. Pizza Farm. Now this is quite the light-hearted, silly little article that I like to read because it means that I can't apply as much cynicism to it in such easy ways. I have to really reach. This article is quite short, like most incels. Now, a pizza farm is a few different things, but it tends to be either a circular field, sometimes called a pizza farm, because of center pivot irrigation, but that's not what it is most of the time. They're demonstration farms, often, that demonstrate and educate visitors about agriculture by growing pizza ingredients on a circular piece of land partitioned into plots shaped like pizza slices. The farm often produces ingredients that can be used in pizza, such as wheat for the crust, tomato or herbs, pork for the pepperoni, dairy cows for the cheese, and even trees for the pizza oven firewood. Certain farms may even have access to coal and natural gas deposits that can be used as additional pizza oven heating fuels, because electricity doesn't matter, but fueling pizza does. I would much rather have a lot of pizzas than electricity. There are a few examples of this in Illinois, yuck, California, meh, and a few other different places. And then there's also the Culinary Pizza Farm, which is the demonstration farm, except it sells pizza. Pizza farms like this have become very popular in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa because the motherfuckers there ain't got shit to do but be like, whoa, circle field, and it sells pizza, and they got all the things that make the pizza on it. Holy shit, this is awesome! Yeah. There's also A to Z Produce and Bakery in Stockholm, Wisconsin, Armor Waves Farm in Armaganset, New York, Luna Valley Farm in Decorah, Iowa, Pleasant Grove Pizza Farm in Waseca, Minnesota, Hawkins Family Farm, not Stranger Things, North Manchester, Indiana, and Winghaven Pizza Farm in Gatesville, Wisconsin. These are all of the examples of culinary pizza farms, and they're pretty neat. This was a nice one to talk about. It's bizarre just because pizza farm sounds like some shit a 5-year-old would come up with. Hey, what do you want to farm when you grow up? Pizza. I'll grow the best pizza trees in existence. You know, that's what I imagined when I heard pizza farm. But, onward. Kanye Quest 3030. Cult. Kanye Quest 3030 is a role-playing video game published in 2013 for Windows. The game was unlicensed and unauthorized by musical artist Kanye West, and was created in RPG Maker by a user named Phoenix. The game describes itself as a hip-hop-themed science fiction 2D role-playing game. Now, the plot of the game itself revolves around in the year 2010. Kanye West takes out his garbage before tripping and falling into a portal, which brings him to the year 3030. The United States has become a dystopian society ruled by a clone of rapper Lil B, framing himself to be a god. A prophecy exists claiming that Kanye West would return one day and overthrow Lil B. With this knowledge, Kanye West travels this dystopian society and teams up with other musicians such as Jay-Z, Tupac, and RZA to fight to free America. Along the way, they are challenged by other musicians such as Eminem, Nicki Minaj, De La Soul, LL Cool J, and upon completing the game, Kanye West declares himself the one true based god and returns to 2010, where he puts away the trash. The game was played similarly to the Pokemon series. Each rapper has their own special moves and abilities based on in-jokes within the rapping community. The player is challenged by different rappers wandering the streets and must defeat them to level up and progress in the game. In 2015, though, a Pastebin article revealed that if the player typed the word ascend into an in-game console, the player would be taken to a secret section of the game. In the secret station, the game would claim that the rest of the game's contents was a front for this area, which it claimed was the real game. At one point during this secret stage, the player would enter a room with a QR code, which had to be screen captured together. This QR code would take the player to a dead site, which was allegedly an IP logger, and it would subsequently pull the IP of the player and send it to a cult. After inputting the needed commands at various terminals, the player would then be asked to give the game their private info as well as instructed to wait to be contacted. This was believed by some to be connected to a group called the Ascensionism that entered urban legend around the same time as the game being released. Ascensionism is allegedly a cult that believes in reincarnation and was hoping to recruit more members with the game Kanye Quest. There are also rumors that Ascensionism has connections with record labels. For example, the name Ascensionism Records. Another game that would be connected to a group called Calypso, in which a player completes tasks around while voicemails intended for the group played in the background. It is generally assumed these voicemails were taken directly off the hotline, which was referenced in the original game. However, there was little in terms of information and the Ascensionists in Calypso. It is generally presumed that this is all part of an abandoned alternate reality game, or ARG. Kanye West be on some wacky shit, so in an alternate reality, I could see it happening. Josh Fight. The Josh Fight was a viral internet meme, mock fight, and charity fundraiser at Air Park in Lincoln, Nebraska on April 24, 2021. The event was originally conceived by a civil engineering student named Josh Swain from Tucson, Arizona. On April 24, 2020, it gained popularity after a screenshot of a Facebook Messenger group chat involving several users named Josh Swain spread widely on the internet. Swain encouraged participants of the chat to meet at a set of coordinates and compete for the right to use the name Josh. The event, though initially intended as a joke, drew a crowd of nearly 1,000 on the day of. Despite the title, the gathering was lighthearted and there was no actual violence involved. The Wall Street Journal wrote that the event became a global news phenomenon, probably because they wrote that. On April 24, 2020, several Facebook Messenger users named Josh Swain were added to a group chat that read, "You're probably wondering why I've gathered you all here today. Because we all share the same names? Precisely. 4/24/2021 at 12 p.m. Meet at these coordinates: 40.822 north, 96.798 west. We fight. Whoever wins gets to keep the name. Everyone else has to change their name. You have a year to prepare. Good luck." Swain explained the idea for the event was conceived out of boredom from the COVID-19 lockdowns and frustration from being unable to receive an exclusive handle on social media due to the high frequency of people who share his name. But he did not expect the invitation to go viral. Swain posted a screenshot of the conversation on Twitter the same day. The tweet received over 64,000 likes and 21,000 retweets within 2 weeks. Although Swain said the tweet was entirely a joke, the conversation became a meme on social media. Days before the event, Swain took to Reddit in order to announce a fundraiser for the benefit of the Children's Hospital and Medical Center Foundation in Omaha, along with a request for non-perishables to start a food drive for the Food Bank of Lincoln. In the same post, Swain encouraged attendees to bring pool noodles as mock weapons for the planned fight. Swain picked Lincoln, Nebraska as a site for the event due to its central location within the United States, with the specific randomly picked coordinates being located on a field and private property. The field's owner, however, did not agree to host such a ridiculous event, and as such, the fight was relocated to Air Park, approximately 2 miles away. On the chosen day, nearly 1,000 people, at least 50 named Josh, a small amount I know, congregated at Air Park. Attendees came from as far as New York, Washington, and Texas, with some dressed in superhero and Star Wars costumes. 3 fights were held. One a game of rock, paper, scissors for those named Josh Swain, a second with pool noodles for all attendees named Josh, and a third final all-in battle for anyone in possession of a pool noodle willing to participate. Only 2 individuals in attendance were named Josh Swain. Josh Swain, the event's creator, beating a rival 38-year-old Josh Swain from Omaha in the rock, paper, scissors event. A local 5-year-old boy named Josh Vincent Jr., dubbed Little Josh, who had been treated at the CH&MC for seizures when he was 2-year-old, was declared the overall winner. Vincent Jr. was crowned with the paper coronet from Burger King, as well as a replica AEW World Championship belt. Vincent Jr.'s father, Josh Vincent Sr., said afterwards his son had the time of his life. The gathering raised $14,355 for Children's Hospital and Medical Center Foundation, far past its initial goal of $1,000, and collected over 200 pounds of food for the nearby food bank. The CH&MC has since shown appreciation for the fundraiser on social media. On May 6, Josh Sellers, a Californian winery, decided to triple the donation by donating $30,000 to the funds. The Wall Street Journal wrote that the event, again, became a global news phenomenon, probably because the Wall Street Journal wrote about it. Atari video game burial. Atari was one of those boomer consoles that existed long before I was born, because despite my smooth voice and irresistible charisma, I'm actually only 18. But the Atari video game burial was a mass burial of unsold video game cartridges, consoles, and computers in a New Mexico landfill site, undertaken by American video game and home computer company Atari Incorporated in 1983. Up until 2014, the goods buried were rumored to be unsold copies of E.T. the Extraterrestrial, one of the biggest commercial failures in video gaming and often cited as one of the worst video games ever released, along with the Atari 2600 port of Pac-Man, which was commercially successful but critically maligned. Since a burial was first reported in the press, there's been doubts as to its veracity and scope, leading to it frequently being dismissed as an urban legend. In either case, the event had become a cultural icon and reminder of the video game crash of 1983. It was the end result of a disastrous fiscal year which saw Atari Incorporated sold off by its parent company, Warner Communications, who you might know as Warner Bros. Though it was believed that millions of copies of E.T. were disposed of in the landfill, Atari officials later verified the numbers to be around 700,000 cartridges of various titles, including E.T. In 2014, Fuel Industries, Microsoft, and others worked with New Mexico government to excavate the site to validate the contents of the landfill as part of a documentary called Atari Game Over. Very clever, great job, guys. On April 26, 2014, the excavation revealed discarded games and hardware. Only a small fraction, about 1,300 cartridges, were recovered during the excavation period, with a portion given for curation and the rest auctioned to raise money for a museum to commemorate the burial. The circumstances surrounding this weird blip in history start with financial difficulty. Atari Incorporated had been purchased by Warner Communications in 1976 for $28 million and had seen its net worth grow to $2 billion by 1982. By this time, the company accounted for 80% of the video gaming market and was responsible for over half of its parent company's revenue, earning some 65 to 70 of their operating profits. By the last quarter of 1982, its growth in the following year was expected to be in the region of 50%. However, on December 7, 1982, the company reported that its earnings had only increased by 10 to 15%, rather than the predicted figure. The next day saw Warner Communications' share prices fall by a third, and the quarter ended with Warner's profits falling by 56%. In addition, Atari's CEO, Ray Kassar, was later investigated for possible insider trading charges as a result of selling some 5,000 shares in Warner less than half an hour before reporting Atari's lower-than-expected earnings. Kassar was later cleared of any wrongdoing, despite the fact it seems pretty clear, although he was forced to resign his position in the following July. Atari Incorporated would go on to lose $536 million in 1983 and was sold off by Warner Communications the following year. Now, as someone who invests in the stock market, knows about crypto, and has common sense regarding money, you would think not to bet on profits that are predicted. You would think that predicting a pattern isn't something to falsely raise a stock on too much, but instead in the market you see it all the time. This is why Tesla is extremely profitable as a stock, but soon it's going to be facing the same shit where it just fucking crashes. Will we see thousands of Teslas buried in New Mexico near nuclear waste sites? I don't think so, but hey, it might happen, you never know. In September of 1983, the Alamogordo Daily News of Alamogordo, New Mexico, reported in a series of articles that between 10 to 20 semi-trailer truckloads of Atari boxes, cartridges, and systems from an Atari storehouse in El Paso, Texas, were crushed and buried at the landfill within the city. It was Atari's first dealings with the landfill, which it chosen because no scavenging was allowed, and its garbage was crushed and buried nightly. Atari's stated reason for the burial was that it was changing from Atari 2600 to Atari 5200 games, but this was later contradicted by a worker who claimed this was not the case. Atari official Bruce Enton stated that Atari was mostly seeing broken and returned material to the Alamogordo dump, and that it was, by and large, inoperable stuff. This turned out to not be true. All of these factors led to a wide speculation that almost every copy of E.T. the Extraterrestrial ultimately wound up in the landfill, crushed and encased in concrete. It had also been reported that prototypes for a proposed Atari MindLink controller system were disposed of at the site, which only further fueled speculation. Since Atari Museum owner Kurt Vendel actually currently owns one of the MindLink prototypes, writing for the Pacifical Historical Review, John Wills speculated that the location's place in the public psyche, its proximity to the sites of both the Trinity nuclear test and the Roswell UFO incident, aided to the popularity of the story. The legacy of the burial has led it to be referenced in popular culture. The music video for the song When I Wake Up by Wintergreen depicts a band traveling to the landfill site and proceeding to dig up abandoned cartridges. The video's director, Keith Schofield, had worked with video game-based music videos before. The novel Lucky Wonder Boy by D.B. Weiss features a scene which takes place outside of Alamogordo, in which two of the characters discuss a parking lot which has been built over the site of the burial. And the 2014 film Angry Video Game Nerd the Movie features a plot centered on the burial. The episode Games Underfoot on the procedural drama Elementary featured a fictional version of the Atari, renamed Emery Vision, video game burial as well, because this is really weird and really bizarre stuff that is interesting to write about. It's that little slice of life that just adds some pizzazz to your stories. On May 28th of 2013, though, the Alamogordo City Commission granted Fuel Industries, a Canadian entertainment company, not a gasoline one, 6 months of access to the landfill to film a documentary titled Atari Game Over about the burial and to excavate the dump site. Xbox Entertainment Studios plan to air this documentary as a series as an exclusive to the Xbox One and Xbox 360 in 2014 as part of a multi-part documentary series being produced by Lightbox, a US-UK-based production company. Though the excavation was momentarily stalled due to a complaint by the New Mexico Environmental Protection Division Solid Waste Bureau citing potential hazards, the issues were resolved in early April 2014 to allow the excavation to proceed. Excavation started on April 26, 2014 as an event open to the public, where they then dug up copies of E.T. the Extraterrestrial Pac-Man, and a lot of other shit. They even had E.T. the extraterrestrial designer Howard Scott Warshaw dragged out in chains to witness the fucking abomination he made be brought back from the depths of hell. They also had Ready Player One author Ernest Cline, one of the biggest incels in writing there, and film director Zach Penn, who I don't know enough to talk shit about, attended the event as part of the documentary about the burial, as did local residents such as Armando Ortega, a city official who was reportedly one of the original children to raid the dump in 1983, because garbage jumping and stealing shit from dumpsters is cool if you're a little kid, but it's not if you're homeless. Ortega stated that although he and his friends found dozens of quality games, they gave the ET cartridges away because the game sucked and you couldn't finish it, which sounds about right because every review of the ET game is that game sucks, I can't bear to finish this. James Heller, the former Atari manager in charge of the original burial, was also on hand at the excavation. Heller revealed that he had originally ordered the site to be covered in concrete. Contrary to the urban legend that claims that millions of cartridges were buried there, Heller stated that there were only 700,028 cartridges buried. Curse of the Billy Goat. The Curse of the Billy Goat was a sports curse, which is how you can tell this will not be able to keep my attention, because I was a massive fucking band dweeb in high school, and am currently an author and YouTuber. Do you really think I watch sports? No, that's just humanity's fucking fetch. Guy 1 throws ball, guy 2 gets ball, boom, balls. Now, the exact nature of Cianis's curse, the guy who delivered the curse, differs in various accounts of the incident. Some state that he declared that no World Series game would ever again be played at Wrigley Field, while others believed that his ban was on the Cubs appearing in the World Series, making no mention of a specific venue. Cianis's family claims that he dispatched a telegram to team owner Philip K. Wrigley, which read, "You are going to lose the World Series, and you are never going to win another World Series again. You are never going to win a World Series again because you insulted my goat." Yes, that's right, all of this is over a fucking goat. Makes sense, doesn't it? Now, of course, there are many alleged curse incidences and attempts to break the curse involving the Chinese zodiac calendar and 2003, the year of the goat, where a group of Cub fans headed to Houston with a billy goat named Virgil Homer and attempted to gain entrance to Minute Maid Park, home of the Astros, division rival of the Cubs at the time. They were obviously denied entrance. They then unfurled a scroll right there in front of the security guard, read a verse, and proclaimed they were reversing the curse. The Cubs won the division that year and then came within 5 outs of playing in the World Series, but were undone by the Florida Marlins. Could you imagine being beaten by Florida? I don't even know if that's shameful or if that's understandable given the shit that Florida be on. Now, of course, the end of the curse was in 2016. Go fucking figures. The monkey dies, Donald Trump is elected, D's nuts runs for president, and the fucking Chicago Cubs managed to win the World Series. Suck my nuts. Toast sandwich.
What the fuck? What the fuck is this? That is not funny. That is not, there's nothing.
A toast sandwich is a sandwich made with 2 slices of bread and then a piece of toasted bread with or without butter and with or without salt and pepper in between. British people really be out here eating like the fucking Roman Empire is oppressing they ass. It is not 300 BC, for the love of God. Do Americans eat like they have free healthcare? Oh yeah, there's some fat fucks here just as much as there are fat fucks everywhere else in the world. But at least I have never, ever, once been asked, hey, what's a cultural dish of yours? And I could look someone in the eyes and say, toast sandwich. That's a shame on your entire culture, Britain. This is why America is so fucked up. It just got daddy issues from Britain, and then, things kept getting worse. Toast sandwich. What the fuck is this? Well, 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 would you look at that? After about 8 hours of struggling on my part and simply 1 hour of passive enjoyment on yours, we are finally on to level 2. So let's keep going, and let me please keep praying that I can manage to squeak this iceberg out in under 6 hours, because I believe in speedrunning everything, so that way when the final boss fight with God occurs, I can simply use wall hacks and nay-nay his ass. Welcome to Mobile Another Pen as I reach peak Sigma male grind status. Let's get this shit as I'm on the road. Hong Kong 97 video game. Hong Kong 97 is an unlicensed shoot-'em-up video game developed and published by Happysoft, a Dojin game developer. For those of you who aren't degenerates, Dojin is a porn genre. For the Super Famicom, I don't even know what that is. It was released in Japan in 1995, being sold as cartridges and floppy disks, and it's well regarded as one of the worst games ever made. As a matter of fact, beating out E.T. in terms of badness. There's also a bit of a mystery around it, as some of the cover art featured gory things, but it was answered eventually. Fyodor Vasilyev. Fyodor Vasilyev is a Russian peasant who lived in the 18th century between 1725 and 1765, whose only claim to fame is that he fucked a lot. He had 69 children, 16 pairs of twins, and 7 sets of triplets, and 4 sets of quadruplets. 67 of them survived infancy, with the loss of 1 set of twins. This is the record for the most children born to a single man and woman, and also the reason that this weird man is remembered by history. Now, Sir Fox-a-Lot here happened to have supposedly a total of 87 children after having 18 more children with a second wife, but understandably popping out 87 kids in a lifetime is doubtable, especially because of the fact that nobody knows any of their names, or any of their birthdays, or any of their death days. But this happened in the 18th century, so what the hell are we worrying about that for? Collier Brothers. The Collier Brothers' claim to fame is in hoarding. These two brothers, who died in the mid-20th century, were famous for hoarding shit. They obsessively kept furniture, musical instruments, and a myriad of other items, with booby traps set up in corners and doorways of their home to crush intruders. In March 1947, both were found dead in their home, surrounded by literal 140 tons of collected items they had amassed over several decades. The Collier brothers were by no means entirely wealthy people. Their home was okay, and their father was a gynecologist, but by all rights, they should not have been able to pick up that amount of shit. After they died, though, their home was turned into a pocket park, a place completely devoid of anything to commemorate the fact that these two people had collected 140 tons worth of shit. It's fall from the sky. Have you ever said, "It's raining cats and dogs"? Well, it really could be. The idea behind what causes this is tornadic waterspouts, which is basically just water-type tornado that sucks up shit in lakes and oceans, carries them for several miles, and then drops them down. It's been witnessed all throughout histories and has happened to many animals, including those on land, in which the regular-ass tornado does the job of sucking stuff up. Some people see fish rain, some people see frog rain, some people see cow rain. Either way, it can rain animals, so, yeah, that's a terrifying thought. Four Pests Campaign. The Four Pests Campaign was part of China's Great Leap Forward. From 1958 to 1962, 4 pests that were rats, flies, mosquitoes, and sparrows were to be eliminated. The extermination of the sparrow caused the most problems. You see, sparrows, on top of eating about 4 pounds of grain a year, also eat a shit ton of insects. So after eradicating the sparrows and driving them to near extinction, grain yields completely fell. Rice grain especially, following to a point of time where China and its people started starving to death, all because they didn't like birds. Very smart move, I know. Incredible. But by April of 1960, Chinese leaders changed their opinion about the sparrow in regards to the fact that it ate bugs and that it also helped grain yields, but it was simply too late. But there was a revived campaign in '98 when a poster at Southwest Agricultural University decided that it was time to get rid of the 4 pests again. This time, though, sparrows were replaced with cockroaches. A similar campaign was spotted in the spring of 1998 in Beijing, but few people responded to these campaigns because everyone who did starved to death. Phoenix Jones. Phoenix Jones, born Benjamin John Francis Fodor, is an American real-life superhero in quotation marks. He initially started out wearing a ski mask to intervene in public assault. Fodor later developed a full costume and adopted Phoenix Jones as a pseudonym. And from 2011 until his dissolution in 2014, Jones was the leader of the Rain City superhero movement, a Seattle, Washington-based citizenry patrol group that described itself as a crime prevention brigade that featured about 10 vigilantes. Now, Jones says the best way to prevent getting mistaken for a criminal by the police is to wear a supersuit, although the strange costumes may lead to emergency calls or mistake superheroes for criminals. But Jones wanted to take policing matters into his own hands after a few incidents changed his mind about Seattle. This was first when Jones's car was broken into and his son was injured after returning to the vehicle and falling on broken glass. Jones was told that several people saw the break-in happen but did not intervene. Later, Jones encountered a friend being seriously assaulted outside of a bar, and after calling 911, he put on the mask from an earlier break-in and made a commotion until the cops showed up. Jones went on to develop the full costume and pseudonym, and his crime-fighting behavior made him too recognizable. In a CBS News broadcast, Jones is shown entering a back room of an unnamed comic book store in which he changes into costume. Jones, of course, got a lot of press coverage, as this is a pretty nutty thing to do, and throughout the course of his career, he was stabbed and even shot. He was, of course, a deeply misguided individual, as most vigilantes tend to be, and was arrested several times until the final time on January 9th, 2020, when Phoenix Jones, a man known for stopping drug dealers, was arrested for selling MDMA to an undercover police officer. At the time of his arrest, police alleged that he and his accomplice were also in possession of about 4 grams of cocaine. So while the MMA fighter did great things for his community and was inspiring for a time, eventually he fell too. Bohemian Grove is a network, well, not network, but club of some of the world's most extremely rich and powerful men. Artists, musicians, former U.S. presidents, government officials, senior media executives, and other people of power are invited in. The Bohemian Grove is supposedly not about networking, but I don't understand what else rich people could do, and it seems that they just get here to talk about rich people stuff. Alligator. Sewer alligator is in the name. It's stories about alligators in the sewers. Pretty shitty place to wind up. Now, of course, sewer alligators have been seen in places believable like Louisiana and Florida, to places unbelievable like New York City. What's weirder still, though, is that supposedly, according to the New York Times, New York rescues 100 alligators per year, some directly from homes where they're kept as illegal pets, and the rest from, well, somewhere. Now, of course, escapees and former pets may survive a short time in New York sewers. Longer survival is not possible due to low temperatures and human shit. That's a little bit of a problem. Now, of course, sewer maintenance crews insist there is no underground population, but that's just what Big Sewer wants you to believe. Being on track with water lizards, crocodile farms. A crocodile or alligator farm is an establishment for breeding and raising crocodilians, and crocodiles and alligators for the sake of alligator meat, leather, and other goods. Now, of course, humanity has realized that if you put shit in a cage, it will fuck, and that makes a lot of money, which is why it happens. In Louisiana, it's a $70 million industry, which is more money than all of Missouri, Alabama, and Arkansas have combined. Don't quote me on that, not financial advice. Mongolian deathworm. On top of being my porn star name, the Mongolian deathworm isn't a creature alleged to exist in the Gobi Desert and is more of a creature of myth. The Mongolian deathworm first came to Western attention as a result of Roy Chapman Andrews' 1926 book On the Trail of Ancient Man. The American paleontologist described second-hand tales of the monster that he heard at a gathering of Mongolian officials. None of those present had ever seen the creature simply because I don't show my dick to politicians, but they all firmly believed in its existence and described it minutely. In 1983, a specimen of a Tartar sand boa was shown to locals who claimed to have seen the death worm, and they confirmed that this was the animal they called as such. It's shaped like a sausage, about 2 feet long according to its appearance, and it has no head nor leg and is so poisonous that merely to touch it means instant death. It lives only in the most desolate parts of the Gobi Desert. There have been multiple investigations into the matter, but despite the fact that there have been multiple investigations into the matter, they've never really found any evidence of it. There was also a 2010 television film that aired May 8th, 2010 on the Sci-Fi Channel. I don't know if anyone ever knew about that, but when I was a kid I fucking loved the Science Channel, so I thought the Sci-Fi Channel would be cool. Shit sucked. Republic of Benin, 1967. The Republic of Benin was an ephemeral, unrecognized successionist state in West Africa known for existing for one day in 1967. It was established on the 19th of September 1967 during the Nigerian Civil War as a puppet state of Biafra, following its occupation of Nigeria's Midwestern region and named after its capital, Benin City. With Albert Nwazu Okonwo, I said that so wrong, my bad. As its head of government, the new state was an attempt by Biafra to prevent non-Igbo residents of the neighboring Midwestern region from siding with Nigeria following regional ethnic tensions early in the war. The Republic of Benin was officially declared even as the Nigerian Federal Forces were reconquering the region and ended the following day as the forces entered Benin City. The occupation of the Midwestern region turned residents against a secessionist cause and was used by the Nigerian government as justification to escalate the war against Biafra. Man, Africa was wildin' from 1950 to present. Ruwa UFO Incident, otherwise known as the Aerial School UFO Incident. You can pull out your bingo cards and cross off. Another pen's going to mention the fact that Bedtime Stories has done an episode on this because they have, and it's great, and it's 30 minutes long, and it explains everything that you could possibly need me to explain, but I digress. On September 16th, 1994, there was a UFO sighting outside Ruwa, Zimbabwe. 62 pupils of the aerial school aged between 6 and 12 claimed that they saw one or more silver craft descend from the sky and land on a field near their school. One or more creatures dressed in all black like fucking edgelords then approached the children and telepathically communicated to them a message with an environmental theme. The Fortean writer Jeremy Clark has called the incident the most remarkable close encounter of the third kind in the 1990s. Skeptics have described the incident as one of mass hysteria because surely aliens would have better fashion sense. Not all the children at the school that day claimed that they saw something. Several of those that maintained their account of the incident, they say it's true. Ruwa is a small agricultural center located 22 kilometers southeast of the capital Harar. At the time of the incident, it was not a town, but only a local place name, basically just a crossroads, the same way that when you're driving, train crossroads have, notifications on the sign, to phrase it in my sleep-deprived state. The aerial school itself was an expensive private school, and most of the pupils were in on Daddy's money because Daddy was a wealthy white man in Harar. 2 days prior to the incident at Ariel, there had been a number of UFO sightings throughout southern Africa, which could contribute to the edgelord aliens telling us to stop fucking killing the planet. But hey, it's profitable, so we're not gonna do that, being that it's traveled across the universe to tell us this, or hallucination in the mind of a child. There were numerous reports of a bright fireball passing through the sky at night. Many people answered ZBC radio requests to call in and describe what they had seen. Although some witnesses interpreted the fireball as a comet or meteor, an entirely logical explanation, it resulted in a wave of UFO mania in Zimbabwe. Now, of course, the incident itself starts at 10 a.m. on September 16th, 1994, when pupils were outside mid-morning break, and the adult faculty at the school were like, yeah, those kids, we're gonna leave them unattended. Fuck y'all. And the entire incident lasted about 15 minutes. When the children returned to class, they told teachers what they had seen, but were dismissed. Then they returned home and told their parents, and many of those parents came to the school and were like, hey, what the fuck? What the fuck is this? The sighting was then reported on ZBC Radio, where Cynthia Hindi learned about it. Hind visited the school the next day. She interviewed the children and asked them to draw pictures. She reported that the kids all told her the same story, an impressive thing for kids, because as we all know, they're stupid as fuck. And then the BBC's correspondent in Zimbabwe, Tim Leach, visited the school September 19th to film interviews with the pupils, because holy fucking shit, these kids just saw aliens. Of course, the aftermath of it led to the Ruwa UFO incident, quickly becoming one of the most famous and infamous UFO cases in not just Africa, but of all time, and it's often described as one of the most significant events in UFO history, which is interesting because 99% of people have never heard of it. Well, here you have it. We're on to level 3. You might be wondering, what the fuck's taken so long? Well, basically, 1/4, a little bit over 1/4 of all of the content on this iceberg was stored in the first 2 levels, which is why they took so long. And I fell under the Wendigoon curse where I started talking about the most simple fucking thing for 10 minutes. No, I did not need to explain Doritos or whatever the fuck it was that I explained in 10 minutes. But hey, I did. And that's everybody's problem now. But we're past that. Water under the bridge. No issues. So buckle your fuckles, we're gonna go even further beyond, because it's 12 a.m. and I'm sleep deprived. North Sentinel Island. North Sentinel Island is one of the Andaman Islands, an archipelago in the Bay of Bengal, which also includes South Sentinel Island, obviously. It is home to the Sentinelese, an indigenous people in voluntary isolation who have defended, often by force, their protected isolation from the outside world. This group of people managed to hold off the British as they came through with tea and heroin to try and conquer the fucking world. Britain decided, hey, you know what, we're just gonna leave these fucks be, we've already cucked all of China. So they did, and these people have been completely isolated since about 1700, and they may as well be living like they're in 600 BC, from what we understand. They didn't advance into complex metalworking, rather keeping with Stone Age tools and what you could make with flint knapping. Now, of course, there is a history of people going to this island and going horribly wrong, but people keep doing it anyways. As a matter of fact, the most recent one is a dumbass by the name of John Allen Chau, a 26-year-old U.S. missionary trained and sent by Missouri-based All Nations. Now, you might think, hey, it's pretty fucking stupid to go to the island full of people who will throw rocks, spears, and shoot arrows at you if you show up on their island, because the last time someone pale-skinned, or anyone who from the outside, as a matter of fact, showed up, almost 90% of them fucking died of the smallpox. And you're just gonna roll up to that island and be like, hey guys, we've got Jesus on the book today. First of all, they're not gonna understand you. Second of all, they're gonna kill you on the principle. That's the stupidest fucking shit. His last note, his last words to his family was, you guys might think I'm crazy and all this, but I think it's worthwhile to declare Jesus to this people. Please do not be angry at them or God if I get killed. I'm not angry at God, you stupid motherfucker. I'm not angry at them. I'm angry at you, dumbass. The fuck makes you think Jesus is gonna be like, yes, my son, go die for these people I've already accepted. Did you read the Bible? God damn! People be stupid as fuck. Now, anyways, the people in voluntary isolation, the Sentinelese, who have been defending their isolation by force, is an estimated 50 to 400 people in a 2012 report, in 10 households, but that was to merely estimate, described as a wild guess by the Times of India. The population faces the potential threats of infectious diseases to which they have no immunity, as well as violence from intruders because they've been basically stuck on this island for about 500 years while the rest of the world has evolved, And sometimes people show up and they're dipshits. And when it comes to the political status of this island, although it is not legally listed as an autonomous administrative zone of India, India themselves has said, yeah, we've got no fucking plans to enforce the law over there. They can just keep doing them. So it might as well be a place that is Autonomous Administrative Division of India. 2007 Boston Moonlight Panic. On the morning of January 31st, 2007, the Boston Police Department and Boston Fire Department mistakenly identified battery-powered LED placards depicting the Moonites characters from the Adult Swim animated television series Aqua Teen Hunger Force as IEDs, you know, the fucking bombs, not the shit that goes in your uterus, leading to a massive panic. Placed throughout Boston, Massachusetts, and the surrounding cities of Cambridge and Somerville, these devices were part of a nationwide guerrilla marketing advertising campaign for Teen Aqua Hunger Force, a call-in movie film for theaters. A film based on Teen Aqua Hunger Force, almost like it's in the fucking name. The massive panic led to a controversy and criticism from U.S. media sources, including the Boston Globe, Los Angeles Times, Fox News, San Francisco Chronicle, New York Times, CNN, the Boston Herald, and several others. Some ridiculed the city's response to the devices, including the arrests of the two men hired to place the placards around the area, as disproportionate and indicative of a generation gap between city officials and the younger residents of Boston, at whom the ads were targeted. Several sources noted that the hundreds of officers in the Boston Police Department or City Emergency Planning Office on scene were unable to identify the figure depicted for several hours until a young staffer at Mayor Thomas Menino's office saw the media coverage and recognized the figures. Now, who would have ever fucking thought that the people in government positions and in police positions are not only totally uncool, completely out of touch with the working class and the younger generations, but also willing to arrest people for marketing? I don't know. I could have never foreseen this coming. No one in the history could ever have foreseen this coming. This is so unexpected. After the devices were all removed, the Boston Police Department stated in its defense that the ad devices shared some characteristics with improvised explosive devices. Those shared characteristics being that police don't understand how they fucking work, and they have copper, which means it's explosive, don't you know? And they of course said included, oh my fucking god, I'm gonna shit my pants, it's literally just my joke, identifiable power source, circuit board with exposed wiring, and electrical tape. My fucking computer's a bomb, guys. Investigators were not mollified by the discovery that the devices were not explosive in nature, stating they still intended to determine if this event was a hoax or something else entirely. That's the dumbest shit I've read all night. That's about stupid as fucking hell. I lost parts of my lifespan reading that stupidity. The city continues to refer to the event as a bomb hoax, implying intent rather than a bomb scare. However, reflecting years later, various academics and media sources have characterized this phenomena as a form of social panic, which is doing it a favor because I'd label it a form of social idiocy of the highest caliber. Gregory Bergman wrote in his 2008 book Bizwords that the devices were basically self-made form of the children's toy Light-Bright. So make sure what you kids buy at Walmart or order off of Amazon because the police may very well kick down your door for suspected terrorism. Adam Rayner. Adam Rayner, born 1899 and died March 1950, was the only person in recorded history to have been both a dwarf and a giant. I would make a joke about this, but it'd start off short and get very long. He's believed to have had a chromogaly, however the hell you say that. Now, Mr. Rayner was born in Graz, Austria-Hungary, present-day Austria, in 1899. As a child, Rayner was described as very small, thin, and weak, and in 1917, at age 18, he was measured to be 4 foot and 0.25 inches. The following year, he was measured to be 3 foot 7 inches, which means that poor man's shrunk. He was refused entry into the Austro-Hungarian army to take part in the First World War, because of his dwarfism, and a typical defining trait of dwarfism is an adult height below 4'10". I know a few women who are, unfortunately for them, below this height, and I will never let them live it down that they are legally a dwarf. Anyway, several years later, likely as a result of pituitary tumor that was identified later years, Rayner had a dramatic growth spurt. Between his early 20s to his early 30s, he gained height at the average of 3.6 inches per year, which is a height that is absolutely massive in terms of gain, and a length that some men have to live with for their entire life. By 1932, at the age of 33, Rayner had reached a height of 7'2", and he had gone from a shoe size of 10 US, 43 European, at age 19 to size 20 US, 53 European, only 3 years later. Now let it be known that European shoe sizes, much like a lot of things about Europe in comparison to America, are far better. US shoe sizes in general suck fucking ass almost as badly as our healthcare programs. Now, 2 doctors examined Rayner in detail between August 1930 and May 1931, at which time his height was 7'1". A benign pituitary adenoma was found, which was responsible for the enormous growth, and it was removed by one Dr. Oscar Hirsch. Now, because of the massive growth, Rayner had been rendered weak and unable to stand, simply because he couldn't withstand the massive power from that rapid growth. Shortly after Rayner's surgery to have his tumor removed, he entered a home for the aged where he resided for the remainder of his life and died a completely unremarkable death in 1950 at the age of 51, where he had reached a final height of 7'8", which is the height that every 5'9" man claims to be on Tinder. Ricardo Lopez, stalker. Ricardo Lopez, born January 14, 1975, and died September 12, 1996, also known as Bjork Stalker, was a Uruguayan-American stalker who attempted to murder the Icelandic musician Bjork in 1996. Lopez moved to Lawrenceville, Georgia with his family and worked as a pest exterminator. He had a poor self-esteem like the average internet user and became reclusive, retreating into fantasy. Lopez developed an obsession with Bjork in 1993, and hoping to have some effect on her life, he became very angry over her relationship with the musician Goldie. Over the course of nearly 9 months, he made video diaries about her and other topics at his apartment in Hollywood, Florida. God, this guy lives in Florida. Jesus fucking Christ, that explains it. On September 12, 1996, Lopez mailed a letter bomb rigged with sulfuric acid to Bjork's residence in London, then returned home and filmed his suicide by gunshot. Lopez believed that he and Bjork would be united in heaven, where he'd be like, "Hey, what's up, Icelandic woman?" who is likely extremely racist because Icelandic culture is very exclusionist and has been compromised of Old Norse people for like the last 1,000 years. Here's me, a Hispanic man who fucking murdered you. We're in love now. Stupid ass idea, but I digress. The London Metropolitan Police intercepted the package, and Bjork was unharmed. Early life is, exactly what you'd expect. He had aspirations to become a famous artist and dropped out of high school. However, he did not seriously pursue an artistic career due to his feelings of inferiority and fear. He then developed an obsession with Icelandic singer Bjork, gathering information about her life, following her career, and writing her numerous fan letters. Initially, Lopez cited her as his muse and said that his infatuation gave him a euphoric feeling, and as time passed, his fixation became all-consuming as he grew more disconnected from reality. In his diary, Lopez wrote of a longing to be accepted by Bjork and to be a person who had an effect on her life. He fantasized about even inventing a time machine to travel to the 1970s and befriend her as a child. His fantasies about Bjork were not sexual, though, which is strange. In his diary, he wrote, "I couldn't have sex with Bjork because I love her." Okay, then. It's that weird kind of family love, which is a love they like up in Iceland, as almost everyone is related, and it's in the name. that defines a family heritage. Weird thing with last names. But Lopez's diary grew to 803 pages with passages about his thoughts on Bjork and his feelings of inadequacy due to being overweight, his disgust and embarrassment about his gynecomastia, and his inability to get a girlfriend. He wrote that he considered himself a loser who never even learned to drive and complained about his menial job as an exterminator that learned little money. The diary contained 168 references to Lopez's feelings of failure, 34 references to suicide, 14 references to murder, and 408 references to Bjork, on top of 52 references to other celebrities. Now, of course, he decided that after Bjork entered a romantic relationship with the musician Goldie that, hey, what the fuck, I've been sitting alone in my apartment not talking to you for all these years. For what? For you to go and cheat on me? Oh wait, we're not even in a relationship. So he decided, yeah, you know, we're both gonna die. See ya, chump. Then he mailed a letter bomb, shot himself while recording shooting himself, and died. And then 3 days later, the people who lived near him were like, hey, yo, Mr. Policeman, there's a funky-ass smell in the apartment next door. You mind telling me what that is? And the cops were like, I got you, fam. Oh, shit, that's a dead body. And then they found the recording. But because of the fact that he recorded it and was like, FBI, I've left you this message. There's a bomb headed for London. And the bomb hadn't made it to London. They were able to intercept it. Which means that this guy killed himself for no reason. Now, if there's any lesson to be learned here, don't do what this guy did. Was he a disturbed individual? Yes. But when you find yourself feeling like a loser, when you find yourself in a situation you don't like, soldier the fuck up and change it. I have found myself in that situation before. I was overweight, I hated myself, I hated who I was, I hated that I couldn't drive, I hated the shitty-ass job I had, I hated that I did nothing with my free time, and while nothing is great right now, I'm on the grind, and I can say for certain that things will improve. And if you ever need it to get up, if you ever feel like you're at the very bottom, look around you and see those who you envy because of what you don't have, and just know that if you work hard enough, not at a type of job or not at a type of goal, or rather a combination of both, you can have what you want too. Just don't do what this guy did. Like, look. She's pretty, alright? Scandinavian girls can get it, but not pretty enough for me to kill myself over. No one is pretty enough for you to kill yourself over. Don't kill yourself over people. This should be pretty obvious. But I don't know. My viewer base is mostly comprised of teenage boys, so I'm just dispensing the fatherly wisdom here, putting my schmeat on the table and saying, Big Papa knows what's poppin'. Don't do this shit, dumbass. I'm gonna shut the fuck up before my tirade gets any longer. Agent Orange. Directly after World War II, the US realized, holy fucking shit, war is profitable, so they dropped their happy asses onto a bunch of Asian countries to prevent the spread of communism. Of course, they had their asses thoroughly handed to them, not once, but twice, by a group of poor farmers. The North Koreans whooped the US's ass, and they were barely able to hold off at South Korea, where the border stands to this day, and Vietnam smacked the US so fucking hard that the US refused to even interact with them until just a few years ago when embargoes were lifted. But during the Vietnam War, the United States realized, holy fucking shit, the Vietnamese are like some kind of elves, their power comes from the trees. Let's get rid of that shit. So they used Agent Orange to get rid of the trees and the other plants for tactical use, otherwise environmental warfare. If you destroy the land and you make it inhospitable and you destroy the foliage that your enemy uses as cover, uh-oh, suddenly they're not waiting anymore because now they have to march in an open field to kill you, where you can then see them. The problem was that they had a bunch of Americans drop this shit, and this is some of the most toxic stuff on the planet. Very toxic. It's also very easily to ingest, and it accumulates easy in the food chain. The dioxin, the most poisonous component of it, enters the body by attaching itself to a protein and a receptor called the aryl hydrocarbon receptor, a transcription factor. And when it binds to AHR, the thing I just mentioned, the protein moves to the nucleus of the cell where it influences gene expression. Yeah, this shit fucks with your genes. Now, because of the fact that it was used in the Vietnam War, there's a lot of people who had a lot of issues with it. And because the US and its government is comprised entirely of douchebags, more so the government than the people, the douchebags up top were like, so, yeah, you veterans who have fucking cancer now, we're not gonna pay ya. And then there was a lawsuit. Very interesting stuff. Really makes me feel proud to be American. I definitely don't want to destroy America as it stands. No, sir, not at all. As a matter of fact, I am crying American flags reading this Wikipedia article. Heil Honey, I'm Home is a British sitcom written by Geoff Atkinson and produced in 1990. Now, in case the name didn't clue you on to anything, it was cancelled after one episode. What does the story center about? Well, I'm so glad that you didn't ask and that instead I'm talking and explaining it to you. It's centered on Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun living next to a Jewish couple, Arnie and Rosa Goldstein. Yeah, that sounds very tasteful, don't you think? The show spoofs elements of the mid-20th century American sitcoms and is driven by Hitler's inability to get along with his neighbors. Wow. It caused controversy when broadcast and has been called perhaps the world's most tasteless situation comedy. You know, normally with sitcoms, they're already so fucking bad, so terrible, that there isn't much of a way to make them worse. I am genuinely impressed. This has got to be the worst fucking premise for a sitcom I have ever read. But put on your hazmat suits, because we're going further. The first episode, the only aired episode, opens with a caption card explaining Heil Honey's fictional backstory, which supposes that it's rediscovered tapes of an abandoned, never-aired American sitcom created by Brandon Thalberg Jr., who conveniently doesn't exist. The story itself takes place in 1938 with Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun living in Berlin next door to a Jewish couple, Arnie and Rosa Goldstein. Now, funnily enough, I had actually read the entire article and explained it all without even realizing that Arnie was a boy. I thought it was Amy. Thought that was worth noting. That's going to be like the only mildly funny thing here besides me, and just how shockingly stupid this is. Hitler and Braun obviously have little in common with their historical counterparts. For one, their racism isn't so overt that they try to kill their neighbors. Not just yet, no. They're not addicted to methamphetamine, which was the most popular drug enjoyed by Adolf. And they also just act like stock husband and wife in sitcoms. Hitler appears in a golfing sweater and a cravat, and then they slap him in military garb to remind you, hey, this is by far the world's most despicable man, and we're just simply putting him into a sitcom. Laugh, you stupid fucking American. Now, the Goldsteins are similarly hackneyed characters, with Arnie making frequent disparaging comments about his mother-in-law. Don't you worry, your neighbor's gonna kill her in a few years. And mockingly performing a Roman salute at one point. You know, the salute, the Heil Hitler salute. The show is a spoof, not of the Third Reich, but of the sort of sitcoms produced in the United States between the 50s and 70s that would embrace any idea, no matter how stupid. Now, in the spirit of the title, plot, and dialogue are deliberately vapid and corny because, bro, chill, it's just satire. Now, obviously, it is just satire. It's satire done wrong, however. Yeah, you don't portray Nazis in any kind of positive light when satirizing them, because then the Nazis will take your satire and be like, look at how cool we are. So, Mr. J. Schlatt is going to take my opinions of this right now.
What the fuck? What the fuck is this? That is not funny. That is not, there's nothing.
So yeah, I read that. You heard that. What the fuck is this? New Atlantis. New Atlantis is an incomplete utopian novel by Sir Francis Bacon, published posthumously in 1626. Wow, I almost fucked up my century there. It appeared unheralded and tucked into the back of a longer work of natural history called Forest of Materials. In New Atlantis, New Bacon portrayed a vision of the future of human discovery and knowledge, expressing his aspirations and ideals for mankind. The novel depicts a creation of a utopian land where generosity, enlightenment, dignity, splendor, piety, and public spirit are the commonly held qualities of the inhabitants of the mythical Bensalem. The plan and organization of his ideal college, Solomon's House or Solomon's House, envisioned the modern research university in both applied and pure scientists. Now, New Atlantis first appeared tucked in the back of Sylvia Soveranum, a rather thorny work of natural history that was published by William Raleigh, Bacon's secretary, chaplain, and amanuensis in 1626. When Silva was entered into the Stationer's Register of July 4th, 1626, I keep almost saying 19 out of habit, 3 months after Bacon's death, no mention was made of New Atlantis, and it was not until 1670 that it was included in Sylvia's letterpress title page, unlike Historia Vitae et Mortis, which received that accolade in 1651. It was not until 1676 that the two works were published with continuous signatures, with the first edition of Silva being printed for J.H. for William Lee, while New Atlantis was, according to McCurrow, perhaps printed by Matthews. Now, I could keep reading this, but I can already feel you falling asleep, so let me just dive into the plot summary. The plot of New Atlantis is that, you got European sailors in the Pacific Ocean. Oh shit, storm. Well, now the boat's got some fucky-wucky problems, and unless they want to go to the wet forever box, they gotta find somewhere to go. Boom! Island! How convenient. They get on the island, and rather than being greeted by, fucking coconut crabs or savages, boom! Super smart, very well-educated men who are like, yo, what's big chimp pimpin', my boys? Welcome to Bensalem. What do here? We research shit. Now, mind you, this is at the time when Christianity was like, women knowing math? Let's fucking burn them. Yeah, that's right. The Salem witch trials are very near to this incident in history. So this is pretty fucking groundbreaking that Sir Bacon over here is like, yeah, let's look at the stars. What does that say? Holy shit. It doesn't revolve around the planet? Huh, that's neat. Wow! God isn't gonna kill me for knowing this? That's awesome! That's basically New Atlantis. Luckily, we already have it, except every other utopian part of the novel is gone. No. But, that's neat. Whiskey War. The Whiskey War, also known as Liquor Wars, is a pseudo-confrontation and border conflict between Denmark and Canada over Hans Island, which has been a little bit of an issue since the 1930s. Hans Island itself is in the middle of the Kennedy Channel between Greenland and Ellesmere Island. A theoretical line in the middle of the strait goes directly through the island, but Canada and Denmark cannot come to terms about the island in 1973 when a border treaty was signed. So they left a gap in the border description stating that, nothing. They stated nothing. But in 1984, the same year that George Orwell rose from the dead to beat the shit out of stupid-ass Republicans, misquoting his work, Canada provoked Denmark by planting its flag on the island and leaving a bottle of Canadian whiskey. A light-hearted joke, a little bit of tomfoolery. The Danish Minister of Greenland Affairs came to the island himself the same year, with the Danish flag and a bottle of schnapps, and a letter stating, Velkommen til den danske ø. In English, that translates to Welcome to the Danish Island. Now, I probably horribly butchered that, as I've butchered a lot of things in the 2 hours that we've been here already, so let's just breeze right on past that. The timeline of this whole ordeal starts in 1980 when Canadian firm Dome Petroleum did research on and around the island. Later in 1984, Tom Hoyam, after hearing about the little bit of tomfoolery on Canada's part, charters a helicopter to the island and takes his flag and his bottle there. In 1995, Danish liaison officer and geodesicists flew in and placed another flagpole and flag, but this is after the 1988 incident when Danish Arctic Ocean Patrol HDMS Tulagag arrived at the island, built a cairn, and placed a flagpole and the Danish flag on the island. Now, of course, in 2001, Keith Ewing and Chris Harrison, geologists with the Geological Survey of Canada, were mapping northern Ellesmere Island when they flew to the island by helicopter. Danish inspection ships Valdjeren arrived and erected a new cairn, flagpole, and flag, finding the 1988 flag and the 1995 flag in pieces because Canada's not going to let you have that. Of course, as a symbolic move, Canada slapped their cock on the table and sent their Defense Minister Bill Graham to set foot on the island in 2005. And then in 2005, a Danish government official announced Denmark would issue a letter of protest to Canada because, hey, it's not funny anymore. You said your dick's bigger. That's not cool. Deputy Premier of Greenland, Josef Motsfield, stated that the island had been occupied by Canada, stating experts should determine which country the island belongs to. And then in 2005, the Danish Arctic Ocean Patrol cutter HDMS Tulagag was sent from Naval Station Grøndal to Hans Island to assert Danish sovereignty, to assert their Danish dominance. Of course, Canada continued to be Chad, continued to be based, and simply disregarded this. And even though both countries agreed on a process in 2005 to resolve the issue, there still has been nothing but crickets about the matter. And as of right now, all geological permits to the place are shut down. A really, really big loss to all four people who were interested in actually setting foot on this island for purpose other than trolling the neighboring nations. Manitoba, Canada, where polar bears that are considered troublesome and dangerous are isolated before they get relocated. Yes, that's right. Naughty polar bears go to prison. Now, before establishing the facility, polar bears which were considered dangerous were just fucking shot. And then we get this silly little concept here where there are 20 cells for polar bears, and each of these cells can hold 16 single bears and 4 family groups. The bears can be held from 2 to 30 days, and if a bear has been captured repeatedly, the term may be extended. The premise is that extended captivity would create a sense of danger for the bears so that they'd be reluctant to approach the town. The bears are very shittily not fed during captivity, and since the bear's natural cycle involves long periods of fasting, their bodies are adapted to going without food for an extended time. Dangerous bears are tranquilized when captured and marked with a bright paint on the neck. Closer to winter, when ice in Hudson Bay is set, the bears are released. They are tranquilized again and transported by helicopter very far from the town. I just think that this is such a silly, weird idea. Could you imagine being a bear and just seeing some dumbass monkeys and like, yo, I know y'all got trash, I'ma eat up. And they put you in fucking jail? Like, you don't even know what the fuck jail is and you're just behind bars. Got the other polar bears out there like, hey, free my boy, he ain't do nothing wrong. Roy Sullivan. Roy Sullivan was a man born in Greene County, Virginia on February 7th, 1912. He started working as a ranger in the Shenandoah National Park in 1936. Sullivan was a brawny man with a broad, rugged face who resembled actor Gene Hackman, but he was avoided by people later in his life. Why? Because Roy Sullivan was struck by lightning 7 times in his lifetime. He did not suffer any major injury or die from it, which is fucking insane. But Sullivan holds the record for the most lightning strikes endured by one person throughout a lifetime. The 7 strikes are as follows. April 1942. This guy's hiding from a thunderstorm in a fire lockout tower, but the tower was newly built and had no lightning rod at the time. It was hit 7 or 8 times, and inside the tower, fire was jumping all over the place. Sullivan ran out and then got struck a few feet away. It burned a half-inch strip along his right leg, hit his toe, and left a hole in his shoe. He was hit again in July 1969. Unusually, he was hit while in his truck driving on a mountain road. The metal body of a vehicle normally protects people from lightning strikes by acting as a Faraday cage. The lightning strike first hit nearby trees and then was deflected into the open window of his truck. The strike knocked Sullivan unconscious and burned off his eyebrows and eyelashes and set his hair on fire. Oh my god. The uncontrolled truck kept moving until it stopped near a cliff edge, so he's got cartoonish levels of luck going on here. In July 1970, Sullivan was struck while in his front yard. The lightning hit a nearby power transformer and jumped from there onto his left shoulder, searing it. In spring 1972, Sullivan was working inside a ranger station in Shenandoah National Park when he was struck again, set his hair on fire yet again. He tried to smother the flames with his jacket. He then rushed to the restroom, but could not fit under the water tap, so he used a wet towel instead. Although he was never a fearful man, after the fourth strike he began to believe that some force was trying to destroy him, and he acquired a new fear of death. For months, whenever he was caught in a storm while driving his truck, he would pull over and lie down on the front seat until the storm passed. He also began to believe that he would somehow attract lightning even if he stood in a crowd of people, and carried a can of water with him in case his hair was set on fire. Now, I personally agree. I don't know what Mr. Sullivan here did, but he really pissed off Thor or Zeus or something, because some god's just like, look at you, you son of a bitch. Zap! Now, the fifth strike happens on August 7th, 1973. While out on patrol in the park, Sullivan saw a storm cloud forming and drove away quickly. But the cloud, he said later, seemed to be following him. When he finally thought he had outrun it, he decided it was safe to leave his truck. It was not. The next strike on June 5th, 1976, injured his ankle. It was reported that he saw a cloud, thought it was following him. He tried to run away, and he was struck again. 7. On Saturday morning, June 25th, 1977, Sullivan was struck while fishing in a freshwater pool. The lightning hit the top of his head, set his hair on fire, traveled down, burned his chest and stomach. Sullivan turned to his car when something unexpected occurred. A bear approached the pond and tried to steal the trout from his fishing line. Sullivan, after being struck by fucking lightning, had the strength and courage to strike the bear with the tree branch and say, "Hey, fuck off." He claimed that this was the 22nd time he hit a bear with a stick in his lifetime, which maybe that's why he keeps getting struck with lightning. He hit a god disguised as, bear, and God's just like, "Hey, fuck you." All 7 strikes were documented by Superintendent of Shenandoah National Park, Taylor Hoskins. Hoskins was never present in any of the reported strikes and actively avoided this guy during storms, and Mr. Sullivan's story doesn't end very happily. On the morning of September 28, 1983, a few years free of lightning, Sullivan died at the age of 71 from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. But 2 of his ranger hats are on display at the Guinness World Record exhibit halls in New York City and South Carolina. Curse of the Colonel. Oh boy, another baseball curse. One so dull to read about that I had to battle executive dysfunction for about 30 minutes before recording this segment. Now, let me stutter and stumble my way through this. The Curse of the Colonel is a Japanese urban legend regarding to a reputed curse placed on Japanese Kansai-based Hanshin Tigers baseball team by the ghost of deceased KFC founder and mascot, Colonel Sanders. You see, after one of their victories in 1985, fans of the Hanshin Tigers just fucking chucked Colonel Sanders into the river. They were like, "Yo, let's go, our team won. Hey, yo, Colonel, you want to go for a swim?" Now, the curse and the legend around it as follows states that Colonel Sanders was like, "Yeah, I'm back on the plane of the living, and rather than selling Kentucky Fried Chicken, I'm gonna Kentucky Fried fuck your baseball team, bitches." And then they had an 18-year losing streak. Now, it's always really convenient when you can blame these curses for just a team being bad. But the Curse of the Colonel will not end until they find the glasses in the left arm, which are still gone and in a river to this day. The Curse of the Colonel is also used as a boogeyman threat to those who would divulge the secret recipe of 11 herbs and spices that result in the unique taste of his chicken. You know, the one that's been revealed multiple times. I just think the team's bad. The statue was recovered from the Dotonbori River on March 10th, 2009, though, and they continued to lose. Yeah. Baseball, Michael Rockefeller. If I had a nickel for every single entry on this iceberg that I had already covered in a previous video, I would have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice. Now, Michael Clark Rockefeller, born May 18th, 1938, and presumed to have died November 19th, 1961, was the 5th child of New York Governor and future U.S. Vice President Nelson Rockefeller. Now, you might also know him as the grandson of someone far more important, John D. Rockefeller, the guy who started oil and bought medicine to make it oil and started oil. Now, understandably, Rockefeller was filthy fucking rich, so he got to do whatever the fuck he wanted. And he decided, hey, you know, I really like being Indiana Jones before Indiana Jones is a thing. So on November 17, 1961, Rockefeller and Dutch anthropologist Rien Wassing were in a 40-foot dugout canoe about 3 miles from the shore of the island they were stored on when their double pontoon boat was swamped and overturned. Their 2 local guides swam for help, but it was slow in coming, and after drifting for some time, Rockefeller said to Wassing, "I think I can make it," and then swam for shore. The boat was an estimated 12 miles from shore when he made the attempt to swim to safety, supporting the theory that he died from exposure, exhaustion, or drowning. Wassing was rescued the next day, while Rockefeller was never seen again, despite an intensive and lengthy search effort, because we can't let those rich people die. Despite the fact that his disappearance was a major world news item, his body was never recovered and he was declared legally dead in 1964. Now, despite the obvious reasoning being that he fucking drowned because no strong-ass madman except for the very strongest of madmen with the finest of asses could make a 12-mile swim after already being stranded at sea, Rockefeller definitely drowned, but some people speculate that maybe he made it to shore and then was fucking ate by cannibals, or maybe he made it to shore and was like, yeah, you know, I'm just gonna live here now. All that money, living like a god amongst these mud people, I don't like it anymore. I'm gonna stay in the jungle. That's definitely what happened, you know, I take everything back. My logical reasoning, undone. So yeah, R.I.P. and R.I.P. I really have to control the urge to say rest in piss bozo, because that's what I do when most rich people die, but Michael Rockefeller was, he was rich before rich was evil, I guess. Robert Johnson legend. Robert Johnson was a legendary blues player who made a living and a fame off of his music. He was extremely successful, but he died young, at the age of 27. Now, this member of the 27 Club can't exactly be, you know, chalked up to mental health issues, and there's even a legend about why he died so young. According to legend, as a young man living on a plantation in rural Mississippi, Johnson had a tremendous desire to become a great blues musician. One of the legends often told says that Johnson was instructed to take his guitar to a crossroad near Dockery Plantation at midnight. There claims were at least a dozen other sites as the location of the crossroads, but citations needed according to Wikipedia. There he was met by a large black man, the Devil, who took the guitar and tuned it. The Devil played its few songs and then returned the guitar to Johnson, giving him complete mastery over the instrument. This story of a deal with the devil at the crossroads mirrors in the legend of Faust. In exchange for his soul, Johnson was able to create the blues for which he became famous. But when he was 27, the devil came back and he snatched his shit. Now, Johnson died in 1938 on August 16th and was born May 8th, 1911. It's sad how little he got to see, but yeah, it's sad how little he got to see. Man's just straight up got straight Great Depression, and that was it. There is, of course, a really great Coulter Wall song that has the same basis, and Coulter Wall is country except without literally every annoying aspect of country. Bluegrass is pretty cool. So if you want to go check out a cool song about meeting the devil and accidentally selling your soul, well, go ahead and just click on the thingamading up above. That should take you to the song. And if I didn't add that in editing, go ahead and just comment, "Yo, pen, you forgot to add the thingy." Oh, and so we find ourselves done with level 3. Are you having fun yet? Are you bored? Are you looking at your phone? Do I even want to know? Bo Burnham reference there. If you've made it this far into the video, because we're at just about 2 hours at this point, I'd like to thank you for watching this far, and be a little bit of a whore for a moment, and ask that if you're still here and you're not already subscribed, go ahead and just subscribe. It's completely free. It helps me pursue my dreams. I've been blowing out my eardrums at 5 a.m. to make this video for you to enjoy. If you don't, that's cool too. So buckle your fuckles. Let's just get ready to dive right on into it. TimeCube. TimeCube was a personal webpage founded in 1997 by the self-proclaimed wisest man on Earth, Otis Eugene Ray. Now you can already tell by the title he gave himself, he is not only just a massive fucking twat, but also a massive fucking idiot. Although people around me would consider me to be a pretty nice guy, I guess, and somewhat generous, oh well. I don't consider myself either of those things. I consider myself a selfish asshole. Most people don't consider themselves such fantastic things, and when someone does have good regards of themselves, they're not the greatest. There's always a bigger fish. Not to drag you down or anything, that's just a realistic self-view that isn't borderline narcissistic. Now, anyway, back to Ray's theory of everything, also called TimeCube. This theory claims that all modern sciences are participating in a worldwide conspiracy to teach lies by omitting his theory's alleged truth that each day actually consists of 4 days simultaneously. Alongside these statements, Ray described himself as a godlike being with superior intelligence who has absolute evidence and proof for his views. But despite all of this, Ray's most notoriety is from the pirate band Ailstorm, pirate metal, something that like 5 people around the world listen to, a video game that I've never heard of, Killing Floor 2, and an obscure Wikipedia article that was listed on bizarre Wikipedia articles Iceberg, now being read by yours truly. So for such a godlike being, this man died and was completely forgotten, and he died at March 18th, 2015, at the age of 87. Ray's website domain names expired in August 2015, and TimeCube was last archived by the Wayback Machine on 12th of January 2016. The TimeCube website has no homepage. Not only did this guy sound like a total douchebag, his web design was that of a total douchebag as well. It instead consisted of a number of web pages that contained single vertical center-aligned column bodies of text in various sizes and colors, resulting in the main pages being extremely long and finding any particular passage rendered almost impossible without manually searching the page. On top of this bullshit, a large amount of self-invented jargon is used throughout. Similar to verbal igoriae, some words and phrases are used frequently but never defined, and while you can kind of infer that they might be terms referring to the weakness of widely propagated ideas that he detests throughout the texts and that they're capitalized, so I've got to be the name of something, even commenters on the website have asserted that it is completely worthless to analyze a text rationally or interpret any meaningful proofs from the text or test any claims from the text because we have no fucking clue what this dude was trying to say. The TimeCube concept itself states that all of modern physics and education is wrong because, don't you know, this guy's God, he knows everything better, and how dare you ignore him. He argues that, among many other things, Greenwich time is a global conspiracy because Big Clock needs you to buy clocks, I guess, I don't fucking know. He uses various graphs along with pictures of himself to purport to show that each day is really 4 separate days. Sun up, midday, sundown, and midnight. The following quotation from the website that's gonna make me fucking yawn. When the sun shines upon Earth, two major time points are created at the opposite sides of the Earth. This isn't how time works, especially in relation to space-time. Photons can't affect anything like that, and this idea has literally less than no backing, but let's go on. Two major time points are created on opposite sides of the Earth, known as midday and midnight. Where the two major time forces join, synergy creates two new minor time points we recognize as sunup and sundown. Again, not how time works. The four equidistant time points can be considered as time square imprinted upon the circle of the Earth. In a single notation of the Earth sphere, each time corner point rotates through the other three corner time points, thus creating 16 corners, 46 hours, 96 hours, and 4 simultaneous 24-hour days within a single rotation of Earth, equated to a higher order of life time cube. This makes no sense, but at the very least, the concepts presented throughout his website remain kinda consistent. Ray even offered $1,000 or $10,000 to anyone who could prove his views wrong, but in case you haven't learned anything from COVID-19, delusional people will be delusional. Disproving their delusion only makes them double down even further on their delusion. There's nothing you can do to change that, e.g., anti-maskers. And, of course, commenters on the situation said the same exact thing. You'd have to prove his model wrong on his own bullshit model science that doesn't work because he thinks physics is bullshit, and even if you could pull that off, Ray's probably broke, so it's not worth your time. Now, like I said, this guy's biggest cultural impact was pirate metal and a vague video game reference on the back of a shirt on a cosmetic skin that was bought as DLC. So, yeah, that's, dude really just died. Kim Jong-nam. Kim Jong-nam is the eldest son of former North Korean leader Kim Jong-il, and from roughly 1994 to 2001, he was considered the heir to his father and supposed to, be the ruler of North Korea. And then he tried to go to Disneyland in Japan with a false passport and completely embarrassed the entire family. And he was also a raging liberal who was like, "Hey Dad, what if our people didn't fucking starve to death? That'd be pretty neat." This led to him being disowned in 2003, where he decided, "Alright, then I'ma head out." Started fucking some chicks in China, had like 6 kids, got some tattoos, and then kept on criticizing North Korea and also became a CIA source, which led to Kim Jong-un, his younger brother, just fucking killing him with a nerve agent. Not Kim Jong-un personally, but he hired the agents who did it, who then fled back to North Korea, and then North Korea was like, "I don't know where they are, that's so weird." As North Korea does, because they are literally fucking cartoon villains. Man of the Hole. Wow, this one's really depressing. The Man of the Hole is a man indigenous to Brazil who lives alone in the Amazon rainforest. This is because he is the last surviving member of his tribe. It's unknown what language he speaks or what tribe he was in. The term Man of the Hole is a nickname used by officials and the media. His real name is unknown. Other people first became aware of this man's isolated existence in 1996, as the rest of his tribe was likely killed in a number of clashes with ranchers and loggers in the 1980s and 1990s. With one expert explaining he should not be seen as a recluse from society, the man is a survivor of genocide, he didn't choose to be alone. In 2007, the Brazilian government's FUNAI, which is basically their, I don't know what that is, declared a 31 square mile area around him off limits to trespassing and development. His territory was later expanded by 11.5 square miles. And Brazil's constitution, which was ratified in 1988, had already granted indigenous people rights to lands that they traditionally inhabited. Since the reserve's establishment, FUNAI has monitored him and tried to prevent intrusions into his area. Despite this, the Man of the Hole was attacked by a group of gunmen in 2009, but he managed to survive. Though he has avoided direct further contact with others, the Man of the Hole is aware that he is monitored by outsiders. FUNAI has occasionally left gifts and tools and seeds for him, and thus engendered a certain amount of trust. He sometimes signals to observing teams to avoid pitfalls he dug, either as a defense or to trap animals. In 2018, Funai released a video of him in order to raise global awareness of the threats to the uncontacted peoples of Brazil. In the video, the man, now believed to be in his 50s, appears to be in good health. Island of the Dolls. If I had a nickel for every entry on this iceberg that was also in the Forest's iceberg, I would have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice. Now I'm going to stop quoting Dr. Doofenshmirtz and actually start talking about this. The Island of the Dolls is located in the channels of Xochimilco, south center of Mexico City. Now, the Island of the Dolls, it's really going to shock you what it is. It's an island covered in dolls. Dolls flung up on homes, trees, well, buildings. There's only one guy who lived there. But this is supposedly because a little girl drowned in a fucking river next to the island, and then the dude who lived there started getting haunted, and he's like, hey, that's the ghost of the girl that drowned. Well, if I just hang a bunch of toys in the most horrifying manner possible, she'll leave me alone, right? I think this guy might be the first in history to have scared off a ghost. Because it's just freaky deaky. You know, baby dolls, porcelain dolls, all kinds of fucking dolls just hanging. I'd rather have a ghost in my house than walk outside and see that shit. I don't know about y'all, but it's weird. The guy who started all of this, of course, died, but it remains a protected area that is used for tourism just because of how fucking weird all this shit is, you know? Like, who does that? Cargo cult. Did you know that if researchers start feeding pigeons and then suddenly stop, the pigeons will begin to attempt to imitate the researchers, believing that it will bring them more food? A pigeon religion of sorts. Well, a cargo cult is the same fucking thing, because what are we but a bunch of dumbass monkeys? Nothing. We're just a bunch of dumbass monkeys. During World War II, the islands in the Pacific saw a shit ton of military activity. This meant that military bases were there, military bases that had to be supplied. Now, because of the supply of these military bases, of course, they're going to supply the people who were living there too. This creates the pigeon being fed bit. The islanders here suddenly know glory and wealth and riches and jeeps. Holy fucking shit, jeeps. Could you imagine going from, like, walking across your island, just blowing past that shit in some shitbox that'll fall apart in 30 minutes, doing 120? Yeah, it's quite a fucking leap, isn't it? And then World War II ended, and the US and every other Western power was like, adios, and just dipped out of the Pacific theater. So that's what they did. And then they left the people there. The people were, of course, left with abandoned bases, whatever was left behind, and a distinct lack of cargo. Well, how do we get the cargo back? Easy, we start imitating the military. Perfect. So that's what they started doing. Cargo cults were groups of islanders who would imitate the military in hopes that they could summon the military again. They would even build planes out of straw to try and summon the military. Like, hey, you guys fucking like planes. Well, we got one for you. Come back, bro. We got a plane. Come here. Of course, this never happened. Strangely enough, though, you know, like 80 some odd years after the incidents of everything, some cargo cults are still active. These include the John Frum cult on the Tanna Island, also known as Vanuatu, and that's where most of these are. The Tom Navy cult, the Prince Philip movement, this is on the island of Tanna, and it worshipped the late Prince Philip, rest in piss bozo. The Taraga movement, also on Vanuatu, Yali's cargo cult on Papua New Guinea, the Pailu movement on Papua New Guinea, the Peli Association on Papua New Guinea, the Pomio Kivong on Papua New Guinea. There are several theoretical explanations, but it's mostly pigeon religion, where if you create a pattern, if you create a routine and then remove the routine, the brain logically assumes if recreate routine, recreate pattern. Of course, this just isn't always true, but it's still pretty fucking wacky that, you know, people are like, yeah, if we dress up as the US military and march around and commit Fox war crimes, they'll start dropping shit on us again. Just wait till World War III, guys. Don't worry. We'll be back. John Titor. John Titor is a pseudonym used on several bulletin boards during 2000 and 2001 by a poster claiming to be an American military time traveler from 2036. Titor made numerous vague and specific predictions regarding calamitous events in 2004 and beyond, including a nuclear war, and inconsistencies in his explanation, the uniform inaccuracy of his predictions, the fact that it's fucking time travel, a private investigator's findings, all led to the general impression that the entire episode was an elaborate hoax, and a 2009 investigation concluded that Titor was likely the creation of Larry Herber, a Florida entertainment lawyer, along with his brother Maury, a computer scientist. Titor's first post using John Titor's military symbol appeared in the Time Travel Institute forums on the 2nd of November 2000, under the name timetravel_0, and at that time the name John Titor was not being used. The post discussed time travel in general, the first one being the 6 parts description of what a time machine would need to have to work, and responses to questions about how such a machine could work. Early messages tended to be short, and a second thread was made due to shortcomings in the forum software at the time. The name John Titor was not introduced until January 2001, when timetravel_0 began posting at the Art Bell BBS forums, which required a name or a pseudonym for every account. The Titor posts would later end in March of 2001. But around 2003, various websites reproduced Titor's posts, rearranging them into narratives. Not all refer to the original dates posted for this reason. In his online postings, Titor claimed to be an American soldier from 2036 based in Tampa, Florida. He was assigned to a governmental time travel project and sent back to 1975 to retrieve an IBM 5100 computer, which he said was needed to debug various legacy computer programs in 2036, a possible reference to the Unix year 2038 problem. The IBM 5100 runs the APL and BASIC programming languages. Titor said he had been selected for this mission specifically given that his paternal grandfather was directly involved with the assembly and programming of the 5100. In support of this, he described unpublicized features of the 5100, leading to assumptions that a computer scientist was behind the postings. Titor claimed to be on a stopover in the year 2000s for personal reasons, to collect pictures lost in the future Civil War and to visit his family, of whom he spoke often. Titor also said that he had been, for a few months, trying to alert anyone that would listen about the threat of Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease spread through beef products about the possibility of a civil war within the United States. When questioned about them by an online subscriber, Titor also expressed an interest in mysteries such as UFOs, which he claimed remained unexplained in his time. Titor suggested that UFOs and extraterrestrials might be travelers from much further into the future than his own time with superior time machines. Titor described his time machine on several occasions, and in his early posts he described it as a stationary mass temporal displacement unit powered by 2 top-spin dual positive singularities, producing a standard offset Tipler sinusoid. Did that make zero fucking sense? Good, let's keep going. The earlier post was more explicit, saying it contained the following: 2 magnetic housing units for the dual microsingularities, an electron injection manifold to alter the mass and gravity of the microsingularities, a cooling and X-ray venting system, gravity sensors or a variable gravity lock, 4 main cesium clocks, 3 main computer units. That seems really weirdly simple. And according to these posts, the device was installed in the rear of a 1966 Chevrolet Corvette convertible. Because we have that in 2036, the posts later mentioned a 1987 truck with 4-wheel drive. Because we have that in 2036, although invoking the many-worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics wherein the events from his timeline may differ from our own, Teeter also expressed assurance that the differences were minimal. As such, his descriptions have been interpreted as predictions and compared with historical events since 2001. The most immediate of Teeter's predictions were of an upcoming civil war in the United States having to do with order and rights. He described it as beginning in 2005, with civil unrest surrounding the presidential election of that year. This conflict can be characterized as having a Waco-type event every month that steadily gets worse, and would pretty much be at everyone's doorstep, erupting by July of 2008. As a result of the war, the United States would split into 5 regions based on various factors and differing military objectives. This civil war, according to Teeter, would end in 2015 with a brief but intense World War III. Teeter refers to the exchange as End Day. Washington, D.C., Jacksonville, Florida are specifically mentioned as being hit, and after the war, Omaha, Nebraska, of all places, would be the new U.S. capital. Considering the fact that politicians aren't human, I guess it's good to take it to a place that is very sparsely populated, and because politicians aren't human, you don't drive off the population. That's pretty cool, huh? It just stays at like 50 in all of Nebraska. How convenient. At one point, he characterized the hostilities as being led by border clashes and overpopulation. He also pointed to the contemporary conflict between Arabs and Israel as not a cause, but rather a milestone that precedes a hypothetical World War III. Teeter claimed as a 13-year-old in 2011 he joined the Fighting Diamondbacks, a shotgun infantry unit in Florida, for at least 4 years, but he also said that he described himself as hiding from the war. Teeter also claimed the many worlds interpretation was correct, which is a non-answer that makes his predictions non-provable, since believers can say that Teeter averted his events by talking about them. Now, of course, Teeter had some fame, some claim to notice, some claim to infamy, mostly in the fact that it was all called bullshit. It was all called bullshit. And that's pretty fair. It's very fair. Now, of course, there are pop culture references and even a fucking John Teeter Foundation regarding time travelers, but here's a weird thing about time travel. If it is possible and if it does exist, as we understand it in quantum physics now, time travel backwards is not possible on the dimension in which we reside. See, the next dimension above the 3 dimensions we have is time. The 3rd dimension can only travel forward in time. So to time travel, you would have to upshift into the 4th dimension, something that might not even be possible for a human being, and if it was possible, would be the equivalent of a circle ascending to a sphere and then becoming God. So you can then go forward and back in time. Now, after upshifting to the 4th dimension, breaking all known laws of physics, presumably to do so, you have to punch a hole back down, and this is without irrevocably destroying time as we know it. Now, if it is possible, then it has always been possible in a paradoxical manner, as it's an infinite time loop. Somebody creates time, somebody goes back in time, somebody creates time travel again, goes back in time, somebody creates time travel again, goes back in time, or somebody creates time travel, goes forward in time, somebody creates time travel. It's like the fucking ending of Ben 10, where Ben 10 always has to be alive because he creates the goddamn universe. Now, is it possible? Yeah. Would they be like, I have the power of a god, time to post online? No. No, they wouldn't. They'd be doing way cooler shit, bro. I'd fuck Cleopatra if I had a time machine. Skeleton Coast. The Skeleton Coast is the northern part of the Atlantic coast of Namibia and south of Angola from the Kiuni River south to the Swakop River. Although the name is sometimes used to describe the entire Namib Desert coast, the Bushmen of the Namibian interior call the region the land made God in anger, while Portuguese sailors once referred to it as the Gates of Hell. On the coast, the upwelling of the cold Benguela Current gives rise to dense ocean fogs, called Cacimbo by the Angolans, for much of the year. The winds blow from land to sea, rainfall rarely exceeds 10 millimeters annually, and the climate is highly inhospitable. There is a constant heavy surf on the beaches. In the days before engine-powered ships and boats, it was possible to get ashore through the surf, but impossible to launch from the shore. The only way out was by going through a marsh hundreds of kilometers long and only accessible via a hot and arid desert. The coast is largely soft sand, occasionally interrupted by rocky outcrops. The southern section consists of gravel plains, while north of Terrace Bay the landscape is dominated by sand dunes. Skeleton Bay is now known as a great location for surfing. The Salty Jackal, a surf camp located in Swakopmund, Nambia, is currently the only group that runs guided surf tours along the Skeleton Coast. Now, of course, the history of this place is not very long in the Wikipedia article, so there's not going to be very much I can tell you. But on Thursday, 22nd March 2018, a Japanese registered fishing vessel, MVF Fusekimaru, got into trouble and ran aground near Durissa Bay, south of the Ugrab River, about 200 kilometers from Walvis Bay, lying 2 kilometers from the Skeleton Coast beach. All 24 foreign crew members were rescued by Nambian authorities, and past human occupation by strandlopers is known as by shell middens of white mussels found along parts of the Skeleton Coast. The area's name derives from the whale and sea bones that once littered the shore from the whaling industry, although in modern times the coast harbors the skeletal remains of shipwrecks caught by offshore rocks and fog. More than 1,000 of such vessels of various sizes litter the coast, notably the Edward Boleyn, Bengula Eagle, Otavi, Dunedin Star, and Tong Ta. The name Skeleton Coast was coined by John Henry Marsh as the title for the book he wrote chronicling the shipwreck of the Dunedin Star. Since the book was first published in 1944, it has become so well known that the coast is now generally referred to as the Skeleton Coast, and it is given that it is the official name on most maps today. It's here to stay. Republic of Rose Island. The Republic of Rose Island and its many other names in Esperanto, a secondary language that is the world's most widely spoken. I never even fucking knew about that. The fuck is this? And its names in Italian, which are right here up on screen, was a short-lived micronation on a man-made platform in the Adriatic Sea, 11 kilometers, 6.8 miles, or freedom units off the coast of the province of Rimini, Italy. It was built by Italian engineer Giorgio Rosa, who made himself its president and declared it an independent state the 1st of May 1968. Rose Island had its own government, currency, post office, and commercial establishments, and the official language was Esperanto. However, it was never formally recognized as a sovereign state by any country of the world, and viewed by the Italian government as a ploy by Rosa to raise money from tourists while avoiding national taxation. Absolute madman. Rose Island was occupied by the Italian police forces on the 26th of June 1968, subject to a naval blockade, and eventually demolished in February of 1969. 69. Since the first decade of the 2000s, Rose Island's history has been the subject of documentary research and rediscoveries based on the utopian aspect of its genesis. The entity that was to be established on the artificial platform took the name in the Esperanto language of Libera Territorio di la Insulo de la Rosoj. In Italian, that is Liberio Territorio dell'isola delle Rose. Sorry for my American pronunciation. You know, it really makes me look so stupid, but I am a man of the United States. This later became Esperanto Republicsko de la Insolo de la Rosoj, Esperanto Republic of the Isle of Roses, and its official periodical was entitled Osvotar Dominico, published in collaboration with the Dominican Fathers of Bologna, who Rosa was closely linked to. It's believed that the Esperanto term in Rosoj, Italian rose, was borrowed from the surname of Giorgio Rosa, designer and builder of the artificial platform, as well as a creator and inspirer of the state entity, as well as from his desire to see roses bloom from the sea. Oh, how dreamy and romantic. In 1967, this engineer funded the construction of a 400 square meter, that's 4,300 square feet for Freedom Units people, platform supported by 9 pylons, and furnished it with a number of commercial establishments, including a restaurant, bar, nightclub, souvenir shop, and post office. The platform declared its independence on the 1st of May 1968 under the Esperanto name. I'm not embarrassing myself like that again. No sir, no ma'am, no them. no Z. I'm gonna stop this joke now before it gets even more unfunny. Rosa was self-declared as president, as every democracy decides it. Self-declaration. Both Esperanto... Nope, not again. Rose Island issued a number of stamps, including one showing the approximate location of Rose Island in the Adriatic Sea. The purported currency of the Republic was the mill, and this appeared on early stamp issues, although no coins or banknotes were ever known to have been produced. It had equivalent value to the Italian lira. The denomination's name was translated in Esperanto as Milo, plural Miloj. On later stamp roses, the issues, there we go, it was unrelated to the Esperantist currency Spesmilo. Rosa's actions were viewed by the Italian government as a ploy to evade taxes like a mad lad. But unlike the United States, taxes in Europe actually go to things that benefit the nation, so it's kind of bad to evade taxes there. If you're in America, I support you evading taxes 110%. Let's stop funding that fucking military. Jesus Christ, I did not need that much money. Can I just donate to NASA, please? But, like, Europe's not as bad. So tax evasion in Europe? No. It's cringe. Now, of course, the Navy of Italy was like, hey, give me them taxes, son. And Rosa was like, what if I did? What if this is a violation of my sovereignty and it's an injury of my local tourism? And then the Italian Navy was like, we don't fucking care! And blew that shit up. An act later portrayed on postage stamps issued by Rosa's self-declared government in exile. Only one death was counted but never confirmed, as apparently Rosa's dog was on the platform during the facility's detonation. Rosa died in 2017, having given his blessing for a film to be made about Rose Island, and this was released in 2020 as the world fucking crumbled. There are several references to it and other ideas similar to it in that there's a platform towed into international waters, but never anything that's like fucking we're our own nation now. Overall, this is pretty fucking weird. I can see why it's on the weird Wikipedia articles Iceberg chart. Yeah, Franz Reichelt. Franz Reichelt, born the 16th of October 1878 and died the 4th of February 1912, also known as Franz Reichelt or Francois Reichelt, was an Austrian-born French tailor, inventor, and parachuting pioneer. He gained the nickname the Flying Tailor. Pretty ballin' nickname, right? Except his flying is not flying as much as it is falling, because he's primarily remembered for jumping to his fucking death off the top of the Eiffel Tower while testing a wearable parachute of his own design. You see, Reichelt had become fixated on developing a suit for aviators that would convert into a parachute and allow them to survive a fall should they be forced to leave their aircraft midair. His initial experiments were, well, pretty good. Everything worked out just fine, alright. And then they didn't, and as he kept on testing, he kept finding himself further and further into the shithole, until finally he was like, hey, you know what? This shit is so good, I finally got it fixed, I'm gonna test it. And that he did, off the top of the Eiffel Tower, where he then fell to his death. The day after, newspapers were full of the story of Reichelt's tragic experiment, complete with photographs, because the best part of waking up is a brutal fucking corpse ruining your cup of coffee. At least 4 newspapers, Le Petit Paysan, L'Humanité, what the fuck is French? Le Matin and La Croix showed images of the fatal jump. Film of the attempt, including footage of Reichelt's body, was being removed, and the onlookers measuring the depth of the hole created by his impact, 5.9 inches, was distributed by news organizations. Initial reports speculated on Reichelt's state of mind. None assumed he had been suicidal, but many had called him reckless and stupid, and that seems to be the fair assessment. A journalist in Le Gaulois suggested that only half the term mad genius applied to Reichelt. God, that's diabolical, mocking the man the day after he fucking died. I can get behind that, but Jesus Christ, that's harsh. Although the same report included an interview with one of Reichelt's friends who claimed that Taylor had felt pressured into giving a dramatic demonstration to attract sponsors, without whom he could not expect to make a profit before any patent expired. Reichelt's death was the first result from a parachuting accident since Charles Leroy died giving a demonstration in Tallinn in 1889. In fact, on the 2nd of February 1912, 2 days prior to Reichelt's fatal jump, an American steeplepack, Frederick R. Law, had successfully parachuted from the viewing platform of the torch of the Statue of Liberty, 223 feet, 68 meters for non-Yankee units, above sea level to 151 feet, 46 meters for non-Yankee units, from the base of the statue, seemingly on a whim. On the 6th of February, LaCroix added a footnote to the report of Reichelt's death. Another parachuting experiment was to take place on the 18th or 25th of February at Juvisy-sur-Orge, in which the aviator Camille Guillaume planned to leap from his Blériot monoplane at the height of 300 meters, 950 feet in cheeseburger units, to test a parachute design, although the plane would be allowed to crash, which is kind of a waste, but alright. Now, after Reichelt's death, authorities understandably was like, hey, maybe letting people just fucking leap off of the Eiffel Tower is, a little bit risky. But they let people keep fucking throwing dummies off of there, so that's cool. AVE Mizar. You remember back in post-World War II when the world was hopeful and the grass was green and things seemed like they were gonna work, and everyone and their mother and their deceased fucking dog was just jacking themselves off about flying cars. The roads, not good enough. Take me to the skies, goddammit! Well, the AVE Mizar, named after the star Mizar, was a rootable aircraft built between 1971 and 1973 by advanced vehicle engineers of Van Nuys, Los Angeles, California. The company was started by Henry Simulowski and Harold Blake, both graduates of the Northrop Institute of Technology's Aeronautical Engineering School. Considering their credentials, you'd think they'd be a little bit smarter, but nope, their plan to make that flying fucking car was to slap a Ford Pinto and the back end of a goddamn Cessna, very specific Cessna that I can't remember the name of and can't find right for whatever reason, Cessna Skymaster, together. You see, you put the Cessna Skymaster back end with the engine in there, you use the Ford Pinto to taxi for takeoff, bada bing, bada boom. Well, you know, they go ahead and the prototypes of the Mizar were made by mating the rear portion, just as I explained. The pod and twin boom configuration of the Skymaster was a convenient starting point for a hybrid automobile plane. The passenger space and the front engine of the Skymaster were just fucking shaboinked, and by mid-1973, 2 prototypes had been built and there were 3 more under construction. One prototype was slated for static display at Van Nuys Ford dealership, owned by AVE partner Bert Balkman. The other prototype, fitted with a Teledyne Continental Motors 210 horsepower, 160 kilowatt engine, was unveiled to the press on May 8, 1973. Both vehicles were photographed by Peterson Publishing photographer Mike Berner for Hot Rod magazine in late April, and Hot Rod it would become, just you wait. It then began a series of taxi tests at Van Nuys Airport. AVE made special arrangements to do flight testing at the U.S. Navy's test facilities of the Naval Air Station Point Mugu, California. The AVE stated that the Federal Aviation Administration certification flights were underway mid-1973. The Mizar was intended to use both the aircraft engine and the car engine for takeoff, and this would considerably shorten the takeoff roll. Once in the air, the car engine would be turned off, and upon landing, the four-wheel braking would stop the aircraft in less than 525 feet or 160 meters. On the ground, telescoping wing supports would be extended and the airframe would be tied down like any other aircraft. The Pinto could then be quickly unbolted from the airframe and driven away. Production was scheduled to begin in 1974, and AVE stated that prices would range from $18,000 to $29,000. On a test flight from Camarillo Airport in California on August 26, 1973, according to test pilot Charles Regenice, the right wing strut base mounting attachment failed soon after takeoff. Because of the turning, the aircraft would put too much stress on the unsupported wing. Janice put the aircraft down in a bean field. After the roadway was closed to traffic, Janice drove the otherwise undamaged aircraft back to the airport. And then on September 11th, 1973, during a test flight at Camarillo, the right wing strut once again detached from the Pinto. With Janice not available for this test flight, Mizar creator Smolensky was at the controls. Although some reports say the Pinto separated from the airframe, air traffic controller Reed Weska, who was watching through binoculars, said the aircraft disintegrated after taking off and making a right turn. According to Janice, the wing folded because a pilot tried to turn the aircraft when the wing strut support failed. Smolensky and the vice president of AVE, Harold Blake, were killed in the resulting crash, and that's because nothing good can happen on September 11th, except for my cousin's birthday. Love you, cuz. Even though the Pinto was a light car, the total aircraft without passengers or fuel was already slightly over the certified gross weight of a Skymaster. However, in addition to just shitty fucking design and loose parts, the National Transportation Safety Board reported that bad welds were partly responsible for the crash, with the right wing strut attachment failing at a body panel of the Pinto. And after that, it was kind of dropped, because, believe it or not, making a car fucking fly is not only stupid, but inefficient. And do you understand how complex flying is? You're really gonna entrust the average motherfucker with that? Oh, hell no. I would not be comfortable knowing that some of the stupid-ass people I see in public can fly. Unusual eBay listings. Many unusual items have been listed for sale on eBay, the auction website, one of the oldest. One of them being your mother's services for one night at the low, low price of $20. But continuing on to the actually weird ones, let's go ahead and just dive right into this. Bridgeville, California, population 25, was sold on eBay in 2002 and has been up for sale 3 times since. In June 2002, Disney sold the front section of a retired monorail red Mark IV monorail for US $20,000. In May 2005, a Volkswagen Golf that had previously been registered to Cardinal Johannes Ratzinger before he was elected Benedict XVI on April 19, 2005, was sold on eBay's German site for $277,000 United States dollars. The winning bid was made by GoldenPalace.com online casino, known for their outrageous bids, almost like they're a casino. And in November 2017, a 96 Honda Accord with 141,000 miles was listed on eBay for $499 by producer Max Landman on behalf of his girlfriend. Landman made a video to help sell the car, which went viral, bringing the bids up to $150,000 before eBay accidentally removed the listing, and it was once again relisted and removed by accident. CarMax, however, decided to buy the shipbox for $20,000, which Landman's girlfriend accepted. There was also, in February 2004, a scrapped FA-18 Hornet fighter jet listed for sale on eBay with the starting bid of $1 million. In January 2004, a seaworthy 16,000-ton Brazilian aircraft carrier, Minas Gerais, formerly the British HMS Vengeance, was listed. The auction was removed, though, when eBay determined the vessel qualified as an ordnance, even though all weapons and systems had been removed. In May 2006, Chinese businessman named Zhang Chen bought a former Zek Air Force MiG-21 fighter jet from a seller in the United States for $24,000. The seller, Ink Girly, then refused to ship it, and it's unclear whether or not Chang got scammed, but he probably did. And then in July 2019, 4 sunken World War I warships, SMS Markgraf, SMS Karlsruhe, SMS Koing, and SMS Kropins, sold together for 85,000 euros. The asking price had been 250,000 euros for each of the 3 ships, and only 60,000 euros for the 4th ship. All ships were deliberately scuttled in 1919 in Scapa Flow by the German Navy. The seller explained that they had been bought from a defunct salvage company and no permission could be obtained to remove the ships from the seabed. So it's like an NFT, but with more meaning because it actually exists somewhere in the physical world, just slowly rotting away in the salt water. There's also been new fucking species discovered on eBay. In September of 2006, a listing for a sea urchin, which turned out to be a new species, was sold on eBay. In August 2008, Dr. Richard Harrington, Vice President of the UK Royal Etymological Society, announced that a fossilized aphid he had bought for $21 United States dollars from a seller in Lithuania was a previously unknown species. It has been named Mindaris harringtoni after Dr. Harrington, but he wanted to name it after eBay as Mindaris eBay, but the name was disallowed as being too flippant because somebody had a stick up their ass, I guess. There was also, in 2000, a toast that was half-eaten by Justin Timberlake sold for over $1,000. In 2004, water that was said to have been left in a cup by Elvis Presley sold for $455. An Australian newspaper reported in December 2004 that a single piece of Kellogg's breakfast cereal Nutri-Grain sold on eBay for $1,000 because it happened to bear a slight resemblance to the character E.T. And in 2004, a partially eaten 10-year-old grilled cheese sandwich said to bear the image of the Virgin Mary sold for $28,000. There is also, of course, people. In 2001, artist Smendy Keith Obadike sold Keith's Blackness on eBay under Black Americana category as part of an art project. Blackness for sale. The piece was seen as a comment on the commodification of racial identity and as a reference to slave auctions, but the auction was eventually shut down because what the fuck? There are, of course, other things, like tunnel boring machines involved in the construction of the Channel Tunnel. The German Language Association sold the fucking German language. In November of 2008, a Swedish man put a digitally hand-drawn picture of a 7-legged spider onto eBay. The picture stemmed from an article on the site 27b/6.com wherein David Thorne claims to have attempted to pay a chiropractor's bill with the picture of a 7-legged spider, which he valued at $233.95. On eBay, the bidding price started at $233.95, with bidding ending at the sale price of $10,000. Both the email exchange and the picture have become internet hits. I could really go on with this shit. It's all kind of fucking weird, wacky, and bizarre, but this is a video in and of itself. Margaret Howe Lovett. Oh boy. Oh boy. You know, I knew a lot of weird things were coming, but I was hoping I could avoid dolphin hand jobs. So let's get into it. Mrs. Lovett, in her early 20s, lived in the Caribbean island of St. Thomas, where she had a laboratory to research with dolphins. The director of the lab, Gregory Bateson, allowed her to observe dolphin behavior despite her lack of scientific training. At the same lab, she met John C. Lilly, a neuroscientist with the California Institute of Technology. He was building a research laboratory with funding from NASA and the United States Navy, with the goal of speaking to extraterrestrial life forms. In order to simulate this situation, he built a dolphinarium, a dolphin house flooded with water, on St. Thomas. There, Lilly accommodated 3 dolphins, 2 females named Sissy and Pamela, and one of the younger male bottlenose dolphin named Peter. All of them were taken from marine studios and had been co-starring on the television show Flipper. In 1964, the dolphinarium was fully functional. As Lilly was often traveling, he assigned Lovett to train the dolphins. The goal of the dolphinarium was to teach dolphins human language, and over a period of 2 years, Lilly and Lovett, both with very different approaches, trust me, very different, tried to prove that human language could be mimicked by dolphins. Lovett reasoned that if she lived with the dolphins and made human-like sounds, particular to how a mother teaches her child to speak, they would have more success. She tried speaking slowly and changing the pitch of her tone to help Peter pronounce the words that she wanted him to learn. Lovett and the prepubescent male and then pubescent male dolphin Peter spent all of their time together in the isolated dolphinarium. You know where this is going. This is where she documented Peter's progress with her twice-a-day lessons and encouragement to say the words, "Hello, Margaret." According to Lovett, the M sound was extremely difficult for Peter to pronounce without making bubbles in the water. Lovett's experiments and her relationship with Peter the dolphin were documented in Christopher Riley's documentary, The Girl Who Talked to Dolphins. Now you might be wondering, what's wrong with the relationship with Peter? Well, Peter, being an adolescent, was basically just a horny fucking teenager. Mans wanted to bust a nut, and because he was only around Lovett all the time, he decided, hey, monkey hole is monkey hole. Hole's a goal, baby, I'm going in! And started borderline sexually assaulting Lovett by rubbing himself on her. The urges disrupted Peter's lessons, and taking Peter to a downstairs pool with 2 female dolphins proved to be a logistical nightmare. Eventually, Lovett relieved Peter's urges herself, stating, No, it definitely wasn't sexual on my part. Not at all. Sensuous, perhaps, but not sexual. You gotta understand, I jacked the dolphin off for research purposes. I jacked the dolphin off for research purposes. It seemed to me that it made the bond closer, according to her. Not because of the sexual activity. She jacked it off for sexual purposes. But because of the lack of having to keep breaking, and that's all it really was. No, it was jacking off a dolphin! She was there to get to know Peter, and that was part of Peter. Of course Peter is a part of Peter! It would just become part of what was going on. Like an itch. Not an itch! A fucking orgasm! Just to get rid of that scratch, and we would be done and move on. There's no moving on from the fucking dolphin hand job! An article titled Interspecies Sex, Humans and Dolphins appeared in the magazine Hustler that dramatized the situation and reflected badly on her research. What research? All I'm seeing here is dolphin hand jobs! Other problems arose surrounding the project, including to Lovett's animal communication research. Lily had been funded to research the effects of the drug LSD. So now we've got LSD dolphin hand jobs! Lily had been testing the effects of the drug on subject dolphins with no results. Since neither of his communication experts nor his LSD research were proving fruitfully, Lily's dolphinarium eventually lost all funding. Due to the lack of funding, they moved to an abandoned bank building in Miami. Since the building lacked sunlight and space, Peter quickly deteriorated, and he also didn't have hand jobs from Margaret Howe Lovett. The lack of hand jobs was probably the biggest destroyer of this guy's health. But Peter eventually committed suicide. Dolphin activist Rick O'Berry explains, dolphins are not automatic air breathers like we humans are. Every breath is a conscious effort on their part. If life becomes too unbearable, the dolphins just take a breath and they sink to the bottom. Then they don't take the next breath. Margaret Howe Lovett stayed on the island and married a photographer who took pictures of their research. They later moved back into the dolphinarium and converted it to a family home, and together they had 3 daughters in the house that Mommy used to jack off a dolphin. And that does it for this video. I decided just now, after shouting about dolphin hand jobs, that I think I've had enough for the last week. When I picked out this iceberg, I didn't foresee it being so absurdly long, so part 2 of 2 will be coming next week. If you're new here and you made it this far, go ahead and just click subscribe. Clearly, I'm mildly entertaining and you're mildly bored, and this is all completely free and you can undo it later if you hate my guts. Now, without further ado, I need to sneeze. I have so much shit to do, and I'm still so far behind on my YouTube work. So I will see you when I see you, babies. Until next time, have a wonderful time, and memento mori.